Recording in progress.
Want to get the thumbs up from IT. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Fantastic, thank you. All right, well, it's February 24th. It's 9:07 a.m. We're here at the fire headquarters. And just wanted to say that we are the negotiating team on behalf of the city of Laredo in this collective bargaining. And should we start off with introductions first and foremost?
Sure.
Okay, and we'll start from my left. Could you please identify yourself?
Sure. Good morning,
Your position?
everyone. My name is Linda Teniente. I'm the Human Resources Director. I've been with the city 27 years.
Good morning, Rosario Cabello, Deputy City Manager.
Jesus Esparza, Budget Department.
Xavier Charles, Assistant City Attorney.
I'm Joaquin Rodriguez, Assistant City Attorney. Now, if we can get introductions from our from the union's bargaining team.
Whatever side you want.
Carlos Lozano, the union president, driver permit.
Brandon Manning,
Albert Chapa, Union Secretary. I'm David Gonzalez, firefighter and union representative.
Jose Alanis, Captain of the Laredo Fire Department and Vice President of the Union. Oscar Delgado, Second Vice President of the Union.
John Eric Flores, captain of the fire department.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming by and meeting with us. We appreciate the opportunity to once again come to the negotiation table and reaching a deal on this contract. Just by way of background, for those of you that aren't familiar, we did reach an impasse last year at around October, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Savvy? I think it was about October
November.
or November. In November, we reached an impasse, but we're back now. And with the hopes that we can collaborate and come to some sort of agreement with regard to this contract. Okay, so now that introductions are out of the way, I think we should get started on the ground rules. All right.
So I just wanted to kind of make an announcement. We wanted to do something at the last council meeting and just update our 5 new council members of what was going on. Given
Okay.
the young.
Yeah, and I guess with that being said, and thank you very much for that. We have the ground rules here and we'd like to go over them. Now, these are the same ground rules from the last time we were negotiating with some changes, and your union representative, Mr. Gonzalez, made certain changes to the ground rules and they are highlighted. So would you all like to go over each provision one by one, or would you just like to go over the changes? I'll defer to you, Mr.
The ones I
Gonzalez.
sent you or the ones you modified afterwards?
No, these are the ones that you sent me.
Okay, because there's been changing already.
Yeah, there's some changes that are on here, I noticed.
And that's fine. I just, for the record, after I sent you the change, we discussed and then some.
Okay,
Right.
okay, yeah, and if you want to just identify those, so we can.
And that's
we can go over
fine.
them.
We can go on. I mean, we spoke about it as well.
Okay, absolutely. So, which would you like to go over first?
Oh, you're not gonna go over those things?
Or if you want to, yeah, we can go over the whole thing.
Your will, just.
Okay, I mean, I guess we can go over the purpose,
However you want to do it.
yeah, I guess we can just read through the first. So, these ground rules establish guidelines for negotiating a successor collective bargaining agreement between the association and the city. The association and the city recognize their long-term interdependent relationship. Accordingly, the parties acknowledge a mutual interest in working together to resolve their differences in a fiscally responsible manner and provide a desirable work environment for employees and high-quality uninterrupted service to the citizens of this city. There's a typo there. I will fix that. I will fix that. To the extent practicable, the parties have agreed to pursue a joint problem-solving approach to labor negotiations to establish a working relationship based on trust and cooperation rather than confrontation. To this end, the parties commit to open and honest communication and a sincere effort to understand each other's points of view about issues that must be resolved. Furthermore, the parties strive to achieve creative, sustainable, and fiscally responsible solutions to issues mutually satisfying their interests. The ground rules may be modified in writing by mutual agreement of the parties. Now, with what I've read, gentlemen, I want to know, is there any changes that are going to be asked in that?
No, that we know of?
No? Okay. Now, bargaining terms. Each representative bargaining team shall consist of at most 6 members, not counting the chief negotiator seated at the table. The parties understand and agree that the chief negotiators for the association shall be David Gonzalez and or Albert Chapa, and the chief negotiators for the city shall be Joaquin A. Rodriguez and or Rosario Cabello. The chief negotiators designation may be replaced only by the director of their respective clients, the city of Laredo, and the association. The initial members of the bargaining team for the city shall be lead negotiator Javier Charles, Linda Teniente, Jesus Esparza, and Amber Holmes. Alternative members may be members from the Health and Benefits Division from the Finance Department. So on that note, we would be making an amendment. We would be adding our city attorney for the city of Laredo, Mr. Zone Win, to that list. Now, I know there are issues. I'd like to know what the union stance is on adding him as a member, if any.
Yeah, so our thing is just the board feels there may be a conflict of interest.
Okay,
As far as the association is a former client.
Mhm.
That being said, if the board felt there may be some confidential information that as a former representative of the association, zone or the city attorney may have, put it on the record that the association acknowledges that there may be there is a conflict of interest as per the rules of professional conduct or Texas disciplinary, rules of professional conduct. That being said, the association has no issue on zone sitting at the table. We just did want to voice that the association recognized there's a conflict. I know that you mentioned that there may be issues, but the association and the board decided that it's fine to go ahead and allow them to the
okay,
to the team.
all right. So that's the one change that we will be making on that, okay?
Does anyone any further? on that?
Anything else?
No.
Okay,
Do you want us to, I guess, the board or the union to put it in writing to consent
we
as
can
per
put
the
it,
rules? I mean, I just so that if they're
I mean, the,
recognizing there is a conflict that, to follow the rules.
well, so here's the issue with that. If there is a conflict, then he would be legally precluded from being at the table. The only thing that you would do would be waiving that conflict. So if you would like to memorialize the waiver of that conflict,
Right.
then that would be something that you could present and we can.
And that's what I'm asking, is does the city want, the association to put it
Absolutely.
in writing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And would you like to prepare that? Or we can prepare that for your signature?
And that's fine, basically just where the association is, understanding there's a conflict and waiving or basically allowing, giving written consent for the city attorney to sit at the table.
Awesome. So at the next meeting, what we'll do is we'll present that documentation over for your signature. I think even before that, we can negotiate the terms if there's any terms, and then you can.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. We discussed reading, as far as even like that, with the conflict of yourself working in the same office, so. I figure without getting into the weeds as far as, let's say, the city attorney's office being conflicted out,
Mhm.
we. Could not go down that road. We'll put in terms so that we understand that any potential conflicts, the association is waiving.
Thank you. So now off to letter D, the fire chief shall not be a member of the bargaining team or an alternate, but the fire chief or a management level representative from the fire department may be available to the city bargaining team for consultation purposes with respect to any provision affecting the operation of the department.
On that note there.
Yes.
It was just to ask if the association had a concern or question on maybe one of the issues when it came to operations, would the fire chief be allowed to speak on it, or do we hand it over or talk to them basically, maybe like the subcommittee type issue, or how would you want to address it?
We can bring them.
Just so we know some for the future,
Yeah.
in case there is an issue that pertains solely under fire chief's discretion.
Yeah, and I think we've done that in the past, so that seems very fair. Also, are you proposing a changing of the language in there or a clarification?
I would say a clarification. It does reference that it may be available to the city bargaining team for consultation purposes, so we would just want to know, or basically reference that, I guess the association could also consult or ask questions and.
Oh,
I guess
absolutely.
consult.
I
Or
completely.
and if we bring them in just so that it doesn't say that, the city will only be the only party consulting with them.
No,
I guess
no.
maybe you could switch to maybe available to both parties for consultation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and then
So
the
we
union,
understand that we get.
and the union has always had, just so we're clear, the union has always had access to the chief if there's ever any questions before, during, and after collective bargaining.
Well, we don't want, the association to go talk to the fire chief. And then he says, she says what he told us, and maybe he told you something different. In the spirit of bargaining and trying to reach an agreement, and probably just takes time as far as, if something is asked, the fire chief can explain it to both parties at once.
Understood? So the. Okay, just going back on what you, I'm sorry, I'm gonna talk about what you just said, going back to the. That we are not allowed to, this bargaining team is not allowed to consult the chief.
Oh, no, I'm saying if we have any questions or concerns.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna
Thank you.
consult with the fire chief, but if. In other, we wanted to consult with him, if we had questions,
Oh,
would
yeah,
he be available so that we may. Consult or even ask any questions or any clarification when it comes to it, or on the record.
most definitely.
I think if anything comes out that we feel that both parties should be heard at the same time, so where you can clarify something, maybe you could do it at the table. And so both parties can hear the same arguments or vice versa.
Perfect. All right. So letter E, the initial members of the bargaining team of the association shall be. Oscar Delgado, Anthony Randall Manning, Jose Antonio Alanis, Carlos Osano, and John Eric Flores. Alternate members may be any current or past members of the association. Only the duly designated bargaining. Negotiators otherwise agreed. Further, the negotiations shall be conducted primarily through chief negotiators or a designee. Letter G. The chief negotiator of either team may designate an alternate chief negotiator for any given session by providing no less than 24 hours notice of an alternate designation to the chief negotiator for the opposing negotiating team. Letter H. Either party may designate alternates to substitute for any member of its respective team, except the chief negotiator, but notice of any such substitution must be made to the opposing chief negotiator at least 24 hours in advance of any scheduled session. Letter I. The parties recognize, stipulate, and agree the collective bargaining process is being conducted primarily through meetings of the respective bargaining teams. A quorum must be established by both bargaining teams in order to commence a bargaining session. A quorum for the association shall consist of the chief negotiator and one member. A quorum for the city shall consist of the chief negotiator and one member. The party with the quorum may, at its discretion, waive the quorum requirement of the other party for discussion purposes, and tentative agreements shall be allowed to be signed under those circumstances. Now, on letter I, because there's highlighted portions, these are suggestions or modifications that you wish to make to the older ground rules. And I guess my question is, I would just like an explanation as to why you feel that those amendments or changes are necessary.
Well, once we list a team of 6, 7, and just make it 1 or 2, or if the quorum is not met, we believe that the lead negotiators or 1 or 2 members are more than capable of making the decision. The spirit of collective bargaining, chapter 174, is to have the decision makers at the table.
Yes.
So I guess other than not having the decision makers, any other situation should be allowed to TA an argument. Furthermore, knowing that it requires final approval from the association members and council. Pretty much the TA doesn't lock anything in stone. It's just basically we're agreeing until an actual formal approval. Plus, the TA can also be brought back by agreement of both lead negotiators to discuss if there are issue does arise. So we didn't see why negotiations should be maybe delayed or held up because we're missing 1 or 2 person on the table. Now, the rules also allow for us to cancel, postpone a meeting if you feel that someone vital to your team does not have to be present. By all means, you can, one side can reach out to the other side and say, you know what, I don't have. We're going over financials and Jesus is just, in the hospital.
I have a question. So are we following Robert's Rules of Order? And because it is a posted meeting as if it were a full committee meeting. And under Robert's Rules, I remember reading about quorums and all that stuff.
Well, I don't think we recognize, that
I'm-
we would be
I'm-
following Robert's
No,
rules.
we're not following
Okay,
Robert's
I just
rules.
want to make sure.
So, I mean, and, again, we can discuss what the quorum may be. I just. Knowing with all the other things in the ground rule as far as TAs, bringing them back, rescheduling, postponing meetings, I didn't see an issue as far as if the lead negotiator and one of the team members could make a decision on it.
For our part, we'd like to remain with quorum because ultimately, negotiations can get intense, if anything, right? And we all need to be in our right mind for the best interest of each other's party.
Yes,
And so by having one or two individuals make decisions, sometimes it's not the best thing for. You decide everything you want to do and you all are okay with it.
and
One-
I understand and fully, and that's why what we're discussing is, and we could put 2 members, 3 members, it.
This is something I just see.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is that if, it happens in a situation is that, we have 2 or you want to make it 3 or 4 members. That it's fine to go in TA on it, knowing that if on my side, I felt we needed someone that has to be here for the day. I can reach out and say, you know what, we're not ready for the meeting, this person got ill, and there was an accident, can we reschedule the meeting? And just like this meeting,
Yeah.
it was rescheduled basically tentatively a couple of times.
Yeah.
And we have no issue with rescheduling the meeting. I don't think it's meant to say, oh, no, we're trying to catch the other side with only 2 people there. I mean, we can change it. I just,
I mean, if,
Is there a specific
To me,
number
it's
you
not-
all feel comfortable
To me,
with?
it's not about meeting, it's about when we make the decisions.
right, and so, and that's what Tony made a good point there. Is there a specific number that you would want to put in?
I
Chief
mean-
negotiator and 2, 3 members?
I think the last, because this was a change that was made from the last, ground rules. The last ground rules, I believe, said 2 members, correct?
So it was
So
2, it was
from the
2 members from the association and the city still had
Um,
1 member. What the change was NTAs shall be allowed to be signed under these circumstances.
Yeah.
I just, why would we be meeting if we weren't working towards coming to an agreement?
No, that's not it at all.
No, I'm just saying like in that context as far as. Why would TAs not be allowed if you didn't have 7 members, you had 5 or 4 or whatever it may be? And that's what I'm saying. So we can change the number as far as where TAs can be allowed. I want to get to the point where, look, as long as each side is comfortable with this number of individuals and the key players for certain issues are at the table. Having the decision makers there, why would we not be able to make or TA an article?
It would be counterproductive. I think if we need to meet for any specific other to work out any other issues, I think that'd be more of a. Actual contract negotiation meeting.
Do you want to increase the number allowed for a quorum? So I want to get to a point where. How many individuals need to be on each team in order to make the TA? That's it. If it's a lead negotiator in 2 or 3 or 4, that's fine.
Well,
Just
okay,
so we know.
so these are 2, I think these are 2 different sentences in this language,
Yeah.
okay?
Yes.
The number of members for a quorum, okay? That, I mean, we can increase that number from 1 members to 2 members or
No likely, no likely.
no live feed, okay. Cool.
You want to continue or? It's being recorded.
It's being recorded, do I continue? Okay. So yeah, this one sentence talks about the chief negotiator or the quorum for the city is chief negotiator and 1 member. So I guess my question is to my team is how many members should we establish for a quorum? And then we'll tackle
Well, because
on the waiver of
I
quorum.
really don't want to start a meeting with only 2 individuals.
Okay,
Right.
now,
So what we-
so now the question is how many individuals?
So if it's 7, let's do 5.
The lead negotiator and 5?
No. Total
The
5.
Total.
The
One
lead
lead
negotiator-
negotiator plus 4.
4 members.
Anyone have an issue with that?
You okay? You okay?
And now I think,
Tell me.
On the city?
The only thing, yeah, on the city side,
So it's 4.
yeah. Because like right now, y'all barely meet quorum.
Well, because, yeah, and that's what I'm saying, we will always need someone from HR, we will always need someone from finance, the lead negotiator. And 4,
so You want to do?
1 and 3,
1 and 3,
1
so
and
4
4.
total?
One, yeah, four total.
Okay, yeah,
One from finance, one from HR.
And this is to guarantee that, so they have the decision makers at the table, they can make a decision,
Correct.
right?
Plus,
Correct.
we still have the mechanism where an instant comes up, the meeting can still be canceled because,
Reschedule, postpone.
you know, an important piece of your negotiating team is not to be present.
Okay.
So we understand that we're not, holding hardline deadlines for like, you need to meet even if you have no people here. We're flexible and going back to, we want to meet you.
And I guess-
Understanding and agree.
Well, we're there, you want to include maybe that if someone's running late, as far as we have noticed that someone is coming in, we can go ahead and start. I mean, I don't think TAs will be done in the first 30 minutes.
well, now, yeah, so 4, so we can do the chief negotiator and 3 members, so that,
Okay.
for that particular issue.
And is this only to make forum to agree on the TAs or for any meeting?
They want to establish a quorum first.
We want to establish a quorum, so that now our second issue is with that last sentence,
And it's gonna be 3 for each side, right?
three for each side, yeah, so it would be 4 members total, 4 plus the chief negotiator, 4 plus the chief negotiator.
I think so. The chief negotiator, is it
I'm sorry,
4 in total,
You
chief
said
negotiator plus 3?
yes,
4 in total, yeah.
4 in
Chief
total,
negotiator
plus 3, yes, sir. I said, I misspoke.
It's okay, I just wanna get it
Yeah.
done. All right.
And then on that last sentence, I don't think that TA should be allowed if there is no quorum.
Right, so,
Now, because it's saying, so the way that sentence reads is, let's say the city doesn't make quorum, right? And you all want to discuss some TA stuff, you're saying, no, we'll waive the quorum requirement and we can allow TAs. I think that's the hiccup for the city. We don't want to allow TAs if we haven't had a quorum.
well, yeah, so.
We can discuss matters, we can negotiate.
If someone leaves early. for
Yeah.
example.
But we no longer want to have the ability to do
Well, the
TAs.
way I read this is. And if the city side only has, instead of 4, 3. But the city says, I have who I need here, we're ready to go. The you only have 3. And I'm
But
gonna
we
have
have
it
to.
just so I can squeeze in a TA. I'm reading it as. I present to you, look, it's me and 3 other, or 2 others.
Mhm.
We don't have 4, we have 3. But actually, we have the people that can make the decision on this here, but we have no issue moving forward to TA. I think it opens up the party that doesn't have quorum to first establish. We're okay to move forward, and then the party that does have quorum can waive it. Is that how I'm understanding it, or? Because at any point,
Personally, don't want for us to prove anything without. I think.
well, and
we
so
have
the
done
city
this.
doesn't have to make that request, but I'm just saying, if on the association side, we said that. And that would be an issue, yeah. Yeah, no, but the way I'm reading it is, the way I'm reading it is,
We have the option.
if you have quorum and we don't,
That's fine.
you could waive it.
Okay.
Now, if you don't have quorum and we don't, we could waive it, but first you would have to actually make the request to say,
As long as that we have the option to.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, so that's what it is. That's why I'm saying that
Okay,
just in case, for whatever reason, like, we're not discussing an HR issue and HR is not here, you know what, we can go ahead and start. Let's go ahead and start. They'll be here when the HR issue comes up, right?
And again, these suggestions were made solely and for the purpose and the spirit of trying to progress things moving forward, so that we wouldn't get tied up with the small things like such as not being able to introduce TA. We can move the TA and then move forward, so we can keep moving forward.
okay, oh, that's fine.
So that is the. Critical point about somebody leaving early. This quorum, if y'all lose a person at the table, somebody has to leave, it's quorum done and.
Well, the rules don't mention that.
No, the negotiation,
That's why.
well, negotiations wouldn't stop because this would still allow for discussion. The only issue on the table is whether or not
We can
one side
TA.
without a quorum can agree to a TA.
Can we continue to vote?
Can we vote on it?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be up to us.
And it would be each party's side to say, we want to continue without a quorum, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's your understanding of the language, then I think we're amenable to that. Okay. All right. So so the only change we'll be making on letter I for the record is chief negotiator, and then we change it to 3 members.
And that the TAs will be allowed,
Yes,
if it's waived.
yes, so that proposed language at the end is going to remain.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were,
That's
Never
fine.
mind.
It's all right. So,
we're good.
letter J. If I may continue to letter J,
Yes.
thank you so much. Letter J, nothing in these ground rules shall prevent or preclude each bargaining team from having members present for purposes of consultation and confirmation of facts, figures, processes, and procedures. Each bargaining team may freely consult and seek advice from prospective personnel who may sit behind the team and be available for consultation.
Can we pause?
Yes.
Just a matter of housekeeping, maybe we need to have someone already making the changes so that we could have them printed.
Making the changes. Yeah.
Like, if you all have the hard, whatever, so
Just
start
the other
making them,
Oh, I actually have the word
You know what
draft
I mean?
here. No, absolutely.
be more efficient.
No, that's fine. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, let's see that. I open it. I think I had it in Word here.
How's the new boss?
Very peaceful. Very good.
What city is he from?
Roswell, New Mexico.
Well, that's where he worked last.
Oh,
That's where he worked last. I think he's from Minnesota or
Mm.
Michigan or somewhere like that. Muy calmado, very good.
I saw, he said the council meeting, like, we gotta work on this. I'm like,
He brings good vibe.
yes.
I can have someone else do it, so that-
Okay, that's fine. No, I'm following along. It's okay. Members-
Trust me.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you have to concentrate on.
Yes,
something
ma'am.
else.
You- Please.
You want my laptop?
No, you take it.
I
I have a laptop, if you want to email.
I email to you. I'll email to you. Thank you.
can have one central.
Yes, ma'am. Right, so-
I think that's what the latest last time, like, she was trying to do it. Have someone else just do it and then.
It's a team.
Yeah,
All right. So I guess the only change that we're making right now is on letter I, correct? Okay, and it's just 3 members. And that last,
Oh, letter D on.
Letter D.
Vote, be available to vote the city bargaining chair.
okay,
We're adding the zone.
okay, awesome.
From one member to 3 members. What are the changes?
Yeah, so
It's
actually,
really-
we'll do those after.
Thank you.
All right, so letter. Already said letter J.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so now we're on to number 3, authority of chief negotiators, letter A. Chief negotiators for each party shall have the authority to lead the negotiations and shall be responsible for maintaining order with respect to their respective bargaining teams. Only the letter B, only the chief negotiator of each party may authorize and allow members of the bargaining team to address a point or make a presentation. Letter C, the chief negotiator for each party, with the consent of the bargaining team, may make TAs or commitments regarding specific terms and conditions raised in the contract negotiation. TAs that are in writing and initialed by the chief negotiator shall be treated as concluded and off the table, thereby allowing the parties to proceed to other issues. However, a TA could be revisited upon agreement of both lead negotiators in the event that a TA article conflicts with another. All previously TA articles as of the signing of these ground rules are allowed to be revisited. Now, I know that was a proposal from
Right.
from the union. I just want to know, but give the reasoning behind such a proposal.
I think there was some issues that happened over time of the negotiations, and I know the association was negotiating for a while, so some issues took place. That. As it was discussed, preparation for the meetings, it was like, well, it'd be best to approach it and to collect the bargaining agreement. Again, going back to the spirit of chapter 174, collective bargaining. Bargaining in good faith, it would be if there is an issue. Instead of a one-side university making a decision, you would bring it to the collective bargaining agreement. So I think there's 1 or 2 articles that.
Pause for just a minute, please. I need to person to my
Okay, yes, can we just copy this for a minute?
Recording in progress.
All right.
You want me to, the reasoning why?
Yeah, I want to say thank you very much. I know we took a short caucus to address some issues. We apologize for the inconvenience, but we're back. It's been about 10 minutes. But if you can just, going back to what we were talking about, the proposed language on letter C, section 3. All previously T8 articles of the sign of these ground rules are allowed to be revisited. We would just like an explanation as to why, that change was proposed.
Yeah, so when we met as a team, some of the issues that have, I guess, taken place over the past. Who knows how many months, 6, 7, 8 months. What I was explaining to the team is that in the spirit of negotiating in good faith. Those issues should be brought to the collective bargaining table, since that's what's happening now, our negotiations are taking place.
Mhm.
I was explaining, we shouldn't be making unilateral decisions as far as making major changes, examples, policy or how we go about things. To negotiate in good faith. I told the board and the team, we should bring those items back to the table so that the city has an opportunity so we can negotiate them. And that was all. It wasn't any reason of this article or anything that came up other than issues that have been taking place that the association had voiced a concern of wanting to address them. We discussed it and explained that the negotiating or the table here, their negotiations is the best place to address those issues.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because I know that in our last bargaining session, I know we reached an impasse, right? There were about 19 articles that were TA that were discussed at the last bargaining session.
Right.
Would this language allow for those T8 articles to come back to the table?
Yes, if
Okay.
one party wants to bring them up for any reason to discuss. Yes.
Yes, and I'm not trying to, I guess, get into your strategy with your union. I would never do that, but just for clarification, just so for the sake of time, are you familiar as to how many of those articles that were previously TA
I
that
wanna say
we are
it's two.
going to bring back?
I want to say it's 2
Two?
and.
And we won't hold you to that. We just
No, no.
want to know for purposes of time.
Yeah, no, I want to say it's 2. It's maybe Article 6, I think that was T8 and it might be Article. Was it 41? Was it the random? I mean, yeah,
6 and what?
I think it's 6 and 41, if I'm not mistaken. I can confirm it now,
So 6 rights of management
right,
and 41.
at the random directive.
Insurance.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, it wasn't.
29.
It was the insurance.
Okay, so
And for example, like in the insurance, one management rights is, I think something happened, the association wanted to discuss them. I told them like, it's best for you to discuss them at the table, like why? Try to make major changes when you're at the table, like this is the opportunity to do it, so bring them up there.
Okay.
And just briefly, right? The insurances, as we went over the numbers, we were told that it was only gonna cover 2 years of basically what was needed, so. We wanted to look at the numbers so that we didn't want to get into a situation where a year and a half, 2 years down the line, there's a shortage and has to be addressed anyway. So again, with the spirit of collective bargaining and what the statute is for,
Mhm.
so I want to bring it back so that we can work the numbers. And basically put it into the format that it'll, for whatever the life of the agreement is, because what I heard from the team was. There was most likely a chance that whatever was discussed wouldn't cover the shortages or whatever proposed increases for the life of the agreement, whatever that may be. I think, Oscar, you mentioned it was really gonna go out only about 2.5 years of coverage.
We're talking about our
Retirees.
Yeah, the dependent factor.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So I told them, well, then we don't want to TA an article that we already know might have shortages within the first 2 years.
So I guess it's,
We just.
I guess so that we're-
Address the numbers on that article.
so I guess so we're not talking about it right now because we're only going over ground rules. From what I'm sensing from y'all is if there's something that maybe you want clarification on, you don't want to be precluded from bringing that back just because it was T8.
Right.
Am I
Yeah.
understanding that correctly?
Yes,
Okay. And I think that's fine. I mean, and again, I know you said 2, Article 29 and 6.
I want to, there's no
But
more. I think-
Again, we're not gonna hold you to it. I mean, in the spirit of good faith bargaining, we did reach an impasse. And if there are things that you wish to address, we might as well just gonna hash them out here at the negotiation table. That's completely fine.
When we get to it, but like the article for insurance, we would probably want to have maybe a subcommittee form.
Yeah, and that was in your
And
email
that-
to me.
Yeah, so that we can maybe knock that out, get those numbers down. So that, what we don't want is to come back in the mid-contract and, hey, there's a shortage, how are you gonna provide it, right? Or we're gonna increase the insurance on our retirees. So to avoid that, we just rather, whatever the contract's going to be, we'll work out the math for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it may be. And so that we're at least as close, if not over, on what the projections are. And then that's all, we don't want to have to come back in.
And I'm sure that we can set up a subcommittee with Ms. Teniente and go over those numbers. She can bring some of her staff and talk about it with y'all. That's fine. Is there anything from my team with regard to that provision, that proposed change to the ground rules?
No.
Okay, yeah, so we'll keep that language in there. Alternative agreements shall be allowed, or forgive me, all previously TA'd articles of the sign of these ground rules are allowed to be revisited. Okay, all right. If I may, continue with letter D.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The parties understand and agree that TA shall not be implemented during the bargaining process. All TAs remain subject to formal approval of the contract documented by the City of Laredo City Council under a duly posted action item posted in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act and approved by the majority vote of the association and its members, consistent with their internal processes, procedures, and bylaws, and in accordance with the requirements of section 174.152 of the Texas Local Government Code. Section 4, negotiation sessions. Letter A, the parties shall meet and agree upon a negotiation schedule. Chief negotiators' mutual agreement shall post.
And so I'm thinking that's what you had meant.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, essentially, and just so we're clear, what is your interpretation of that last sentence? That way it's clear for the record.
Well, it's just the chief negotiator mutual agreement. It just went postponed or it wasn't clear as it was written.
Kind of waffled, did it say? no?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
well, no, it was just that the chief negotiators mutual agreement postponed or rescheduled meeting.
It was, a word was missing there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sure it was a typo or something.
Yeah, so that's what I figured. So that's,
Okay.
I put it in red so that,
That's fine. And thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that.
and then if you want to reword it, we're okay.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't think it was reading.
I don't think that there's any. No, I don't think there's any issues with that. All right, if we move on to letter B.
Mhm.
Negotiation sessions shall be scheduled to allow up to 10 hours of negotiations and caucus time and will not last more than 10 hours unless circumstances dictate otherwise, as determined by the respective bargaining teams. Caucuses during specific sessions shall only be used to discuss the items on that day's agenda. All preparation for the day's sessions shall be conducted prior to the meeting date. Again, I would like you to go over those proposed changes if you could.
These were concerns that the team basically voiced while we were reviewing it. Basically, what I was being told was that caucusing all morning and then the issues were really not discussed. So it was just in a spirit of like, okay, let's say, and further on another article, like, let's set an agenda so we know exactly what article. So, because I explained to the team, for you to go over 30 articles, not knowing which one's coming up the next meeting is to me a waste of time. So it was.
Be prepared.
Right, so that we know we're gonna hit, and this touches on the other article, right? But it was more just so that we know that what's going to be discussed, how we're moving forward, and that our caucus will be used on that, and so that everyone on each side knows, okay, we're gonna discuss these issues, and if the time allows, we can bring up other issues if both sides agree to it. But it was just more for a smoother flow, a smoother process. There was like nothing other than that.
And there is a posting, as required by the Texas Open Meetings Act. Do you want those articles on that posting, or is it something that could be emailed between chief negotiators?
I think it's maybe better something that's emailed, and if we can't even just discuss here,
Okay.
that would count as a posting, or if anyone want to notice. But further, I wouldn't want to be tied up with, we didn't post so many things,
Exactly.
and then all of a sudden now we're held out.
Exactly.
Just so both parties know what the game plan is, we're gonna discuss these 4 articles and these 6 articles today, and both sides are prepared to discuss them when we show up.
And it makes it more efficient I know on our side as well, we're gonna prepare for these 6 articles, that one, that's not coming up till 2 weeks, so we'll touch it when we get there.
And and on that same note, I think that if we are ready to discuss an article, I don't think we should be precluded from bringing up other articles by I guess, an agreement by the chief negotiators that say, well, the agenda only had 6, but there's a 7th one we really want to talk about. I think that the chief negotiators can.
And I included it in,
Okay.
if it's not in this one, in another one, that if we get through these items, we can move on.
And that'd be letter C.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
So I included it just so that if we're here and we have time, might as well bring it up if we agree on certain articles.
So before we get to that, just want to ask my team if there's anything. If that proposed change is agreeable, I think so. All right, letter C. The frequency, the time, and the number of meetings shall be scheduled with due regard for the impasse deadline imposed by 174.152 of the Texas Local Government Code, or is otherwise extended by written agreement. Meeting sessions shall be held at a minimum of once every 2 weeks. An agenda of items / articles to be discussed shall be agreed upon for the subsequent session during the previously held sessions. If time allows during specific session, then all articles on that day's agenda have been discussed or agreed on. Other items or articles may be presented
And I have the by mutual agreement of,
by mutual agreement of the chief negotiators. I think we'll make that change on letter C, section 4.
and then and that article B and C was just more of, hey, let's more efficiently, let's move forward so that we can get things done.
Okay. So that change will be made for the record on letter C by mutual agreement of the chief negotiators. So let's go letter D, if I may. During the negotiation sessions, either party may request a breaker caucus during the negotiation sessions. Letter E, upon the agreement of both chief negotiators, a subcommittee may be formed to gather information on a specific article to maintain the efficiency of negotiations. And that would allow us to have a subcommittee on Article 29. Number 5, schedule of presentation proposals. Letter A, the initial meeting shall be the following purpose: set the initial identity of each bargaining team, discussion and adoption of ground rules, and general discussions of the schedule, format, structure, and content of the negotiations. Letter B, the collective bargaining process for purposes of impasse deadlines under Chapter 174, Texas Local Government Code, shall not commence until the first scheduled bargaining meeting at which a substantive proposal is tendered by one of the parties. This shall be denominated as the first bargaining meeting for purposes of Chapter 174, Texas Local Government Code. Letter C, the party's goal is that the fourth bargaining meeting, beginning with the first bargaining meeting, shall be the last meeting where any new proposals may be submitted in writing and presented by either negotiating team, subject to any mutually agreed modifications of this schedule. Section 6, news release and printed media. During the negotiations, neither party shall unilaterally issue news releases or hold any press conferences in any form or issue any other printed materials regarding the events during negotiations or the status of the negotiations. Now, I know that certain language was taken out of the first ground rules, and I think that language allowed for both parties to mutually agree to giving a statement to the press.
Right.
Okay, now I know that you all wanted that provision out, but I just want to know just an explanation as to why. I think I understand, but just for the record.
It was just, meetings are being live streamed, they're recorded, they're online. What we didn't want was negotiations to become basically a trial by public opinion and you know, each side giving opinions and trying to position the other side into certain situation or certain scenario. We have no issue presenting what the facts and proposals are, and again, going back to the spirit of Chapter 174, we're trying to reach an agreement and having the decision makers at the table. We didn't see a need to be holding press releases and basically give an opinion to the media. If the media is going to cover it, there's more than enough information on the record and on live stream and recordings to be able to see what the positions are. Okay. I mean, if we're not, stuck in our position and that's it, we discussed it, there would be no need. That's our position probably to the media would be, there's no comment, we're in negotiation.
For us, I think it works well. Personally, I think we want to keep it because it provides transparency. It's something that the city is striving for and we have nothing to hide.
As far as giving statements?
No, I thought the video.
No, this is for giving
This
statements.
is for giving
Yeah,
statements to the
yeah.
media. No, it's.
So we're saying that we have the video, there's recordings, and
Oh,
that's,
Yeah.
we're,
Perfect.
that's
Yeah.
more than
Fine.
suffice
Yeah,
to.
of course.
Yeah, I think we're okay with those proposed changes. I don't want this negotiation to be negotiated in the court of public opinion.
Right.
I think it's best if we just keep, and it's actually gonna be better, it's gonna be more beneficial for negotiations that there's no outside forces coming in and messing with the negotiation table. So I'm in
Right.
complete agreement with that. Okay, so number 7, contacts during negotiations. The parties agree that all negotiations shall be conducted exclusively between the designated bargaining teams at the bargaining table under a public meeting. Neither party shall make any effort to bypass such designated bargaining teams during any stage of the negotiations, which began February 24th, 2023. I know that there are some issues with that particular provision from the union.
Right.
I'd like to hear what those,
Well, if you wanna, I guess. Well, and letter A, the issue was, being able to discuss, I think that the city mentioned with council.
Mhm.
I don't think there's a need to discuss anything with council at this point. I think we go back to spirit of 174.
Mhm.
If you don't have the decision makers at the table, then maybe we should bring the decision makers in. That's one stance on it. The other one is going to council. I don't think anyone on this side is trying to lobby or put anything in position, and I'm pretty sure with everything that has taken place, there's nothing. Council doesn't know it. They don't know it by now, right? That being said, the issue was being able to talk to them, deal with them. We understand that they are part of the public employees, right? Under chapter 74, they're defined and they're included there. Having to discuss anything dealing with the actual bargaining session, we're fine with not discussing it with council. It's more, there's a lot of things that take place outside of the collective bargaining agreement one thing that I mentioned was that I don't think the association should be gagged from speaking to a councilman because they're gonna plant trees at the park or anything like that.
And that's not the intention. That's not the intention at all. What we're trying to do is make sure that, just like with the media issue,
Right.
we're trying to keep things here at the table, okay? And we're trying to, I mean, it would be akin to me going to one of your members and trying to negotiate this with your firefighters as opposed to bargaining with you. We would never do that. And since you represent them, we represent council, it would be the same thing. You going to council and advocating for your side.
Right.
But we understand that you are public employees. The council is part of this government, this government. There may be situations where you're talking with them, as long as you promise not to talk to them about what's going on at the negotiation table.
Right.
That's,
Now, we did want to bring up and I think C addresses it. Now, if council does ask a question and says, I want to, for whatever reason, I want to know why or this. I agree, there's more than enough video, there's recordings, but and that's what I wanted to touch on, maybe is, does the sub. I'm reading on letter C.
well, we haven't gotten there yet, but.
Okay,
we'll get-
well, and that's, and because it kind of ties into it under the contracts or negotiations, but
Okay.
that being said, no, we're not trying to negotiate with council, we're not trying to lobby council. It's just, part of one, there's negotiations taking place. We understand they're the public employer, they are our employers, and they are part of the city's team. With that being said, though, representing council, there are issues as far as, and you know, this has been mentioned from the city's city attorney's office. Council as our clients. Well, the city of Laredo is the city attorney's office clients, not just council. An individual councilman stating, say, something outrageous just to make the point. I want to do away with fire services. I don't think they're important, right? Our opinion is the city's attorney's office should be, oh, I don't represent you on something like that. I represent the city and what's in the best interest for the city. And in that in mind, we have no issue trying to lobby or negotiate with council. Or as far as basically not the word here, bypassing the team, just with that and understanding, right? That if an individual councilman's position is, you know what, I just don't like you and I want to do this for this reason. I don't think it's the city attorney's position or office to say, you're right, you are my client. You're right. That's how I understand it.
I'm a little confused. If we would have been able to talk to the council members, especially the new ones, in executive session, we would have provided to them the rules of engagement.
Right.
Meaning, we're in negotiations. Let's go ahead and both understand that, this period, while it's occurring, we're negotiating in good faith. That was not able to happen. We the rules of engagement.
Right.
Yeah, and that's really all we're trying to do. I mean, we're not trying to negotiate any of this outside of the confines of this negotiation table. And yes, ma'am.
In addition to that, so we're committing council to future budget years. They must know that.
Right.
Because any decisions that are made here at the table ultimately must be approved by them, whatever we do.
Right.
And so we must give them an overview of what our budget looks like and what direction ultimately we need to take. You said something that, well, the decision makers at the table. Neither of us are, because the decision makers are your union, your membership, and our council. We're here to fight both sides the best way we can. And at this point, none of us are here to be decision makers. We're here to provide the best deal for both of them.
And I guess that's where then we will respectfully disagree. Collective bargaining, chapter 174. Under the law is basically that, the bargain in good faith means that you bring the decision makers to the table so that we can make decisions. If what I'm hearing is that, well, we're not gonna make any decisions, then what would you be TAing on? I mean, I understand the budget process and what council's looking at in the future. I understand that. But there's two things, like I said, like the city of Laredo and as a whole are all of our clients to begin with. And then two, if no one at the table is gonna be able to make a decision, then that's not in the
We have
spirit of.
directives. We all have a goal, right?
Right.
So what, so I guess there's a little bit of confusion there, and hopefully whatever I say, I can clear that up. You are dealing with people at this table who can make decisions. You are, that's why we not only have our director of budget, our deputy city manager, and our director for HR. We are the decision makers. Precluded from going back to our clients and asking for guidance, because it would, and again, a lot of the things that you've been proposing have been so that we can expedite this process, reach an agreement. I don't think we can reach an agreement if we don't have the proper guidance from council. And remember, this is a political body. We have 5 new members with 5 different opinions.
No, and we
yeah.
understand that, and I don't
Yeah.
think anything said that we were precluding you
Mhm.
from doing that. We understand basically who each party is. Part of what I started with, what I'm getting at is that, and you referenced it again right now, I need to go back to my client.
Mhm.
Council is not your client, right? To me, I think the city of Laredo is your client
Yes.
under the spirit of what this is, of what your office represents, and what management represents. What I'm saying is, for the most part, yes, I agree. If council is worried about budget, future years, the benefit of the city, what's in the best interest, of course. What I'm saying though is that, because when you position yourself in that way, they are my count, or they are my client, that councilman is my client. I don't think that's what the positioning should be, depending, again, on the circumstances, not that they exist or not that they may exist. I'm just, as we're discussing it right now, so that
And-
cooler heads
Give
can
you an
prevail.
ugly example of what happened the last collective bargaining. Those individuals that were at the table. Bargaining the state, but what happened at council? What happened, right? And we know what happened. We know that there was behind the scenes
Right.
changes and what was negotiated. Theaters had anything to do with it, and it was,
No, I think we're arguing,
right, and that's what we want to avoid, that's what we
that-
want to
I think
avoid.
what we don't want is to, make a proposal and for y'all to have to take it to council every single time.
No,
It's like, we're kind
of
of
course not.
indirectly negotiating with council.
I think
course
you
not.
made the comment right now, y'all want the ability to brief council about future financial issues. So
Yes.
once an agreement is TA'd on, and we're going to our mutual parties to sit. This is what you're gonna be voting on, but not on a weekly or daily basis as we're negotiating.
Pause. So remember what the steps are. It must be posted on the agenda. We don't meet but every 2 weeks. What did we do historically? We've never done that. Practice wise, we've gone once, maybe twice, when negotiations occur in the very beginning. And maybe one time in between, and at the very end, hey, this is a proposal, let's approve it. That's all we're saying that's going to
Well,
happen.
you brought up previous contract negotiation and previous contract negotiations, anytime we got to financial issues. We paused and stalled during it, and we've even had to bring in city managers during those, after months of stalemating. We finally had to bring in city managers to finally get approvals. And that's what we're saying is, if you're gonna need to bring in the city manager to make that approval, have them here. If y'all are the people that make the decision, then we're here. Let's do it. We're not going back to 400 members and asking their opinion on everything. There'll be a final approval by the 400 members. There'll be a final approval by city council, but we're not going back and checking with them every time, like,
And Rhonda, what good was it to bring the city manager? At the end of the day, you all decided to do what you wanted. to
No, I'm
do.
talking about previous contracts.
Well, I remember when Carlos Guerrero came because.
I do too.
Yeah, I remember that too.
And he
But-
came to the table
and so
because we
so
had
that so that we
celebrated
don't,
Yeah,
so that we don't,
We're not rehashing, we guys,
Yeah.
we have to move forward, I'm
And,
sorry.
and, and,
Let's move forward.
so, and we're fine with the language,
Yes.
there was just that concern as far as. What does it limit, and you're saying it's only the issues per collective bargaining?
I don't, yeah, we
We're
don't,
fine with that,
that's-
so in other words, if a chopper tomorrow goes to an event for Councilman
He can
S.
go.
Yeah, that's all we're getting at with that, and
so
then,
if you believe that the language is too restrictive. Or that it's not clear enough, can we do something where we can come back with different language
well,
or,
and yeah, so, I mean, the parties agree that language should be conducted exclusively. So that the first sentence is fine, neither party shall make any effort to bypass such designated bargaining teams during any stage in the negotiations.
Yes.
That part right there.
the,
On the table.
Okay.
Right?
okay,
It just
so.
says. Such designated bargaining teams during any stage of the negotiations seems a little bit kind of broad. And that's what the question was, well, what does that,
Well,
what does that
so
include?
any effort to bypass such designated bargaining teams, so. You want a little bit more clarity.
Okay.
And with, remember, the context in which these Brown rules are written in is for the purposes of bargaining. So
Right.
what this language is saying, and maybe it's a little too broad in your interpretation, and that's
Oh,
completely
no,
fine.
I just had a question, I know we wanted
Okay.
to ask.
Okay.
and
Yeah,
clarification is there.
and really what that means is we do not want the union to bypass this negotiation team and start negotiating terms of this contract with council.
Right.
In the same token, your members about the terms of this contract.
Right.
Is that clear enough for everyone?
Exactly, and that's perfect, there, in terms of the contract. Yes.
Okay,
That's all we were asking.
So do we change language or are we good?
so are we proposing to change the language? or-
You had asked what language, if there was an issue with, that's why I mentioned it, but
Okay.
if your clarification is suffice and if everyone's understanding is being recorded, I think it's
Okay,
it's clear unless we want to reword it.
I mean, we've already clarified it for the record. I think the language does an adequate job of explaining it. Okay,
Then we're fine with that.
All
We're
right.
fine with that? Yes.
okay, letter B. This section is effective beginning February 24th, 2023, and up to when the impasse has been reached and defined by 174.152 of the Texas Local Government Code. Letter C. Upon agreement by both chief negotiators, the parties may address concerns, issues, and or questions raised by elected city officials and or association members in a subcommittee prior to or after scheduled negotiation meetings. The subcommittee in this section will include one lead negotiator from each party. Know that the last part of. So letter C, is there any issues with letter C from the union?
It was just with the wording that I had included, that essentially was a little bit more clarification, basically, and I don't think even that did a good job as clarifying it. Get more clarification from both sides. That's how I took this subcommittee was, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Councilman X says, you know what? Saw the meeting, still don't get it. I want more clarification. I want to talk to both parties.
Maybe we
Are
should,
they allowed to?
maybe we should ask it, do it in writing so we can both respond in writing to them.
And right.
I don't know, I'm asking. I'm-
Oh, no, I understood the subcommittee as that, and I just thought, I added some wording, but I'm saying even the wording added, I don't think really addressed what we
I
were trying to
think if you
get
go
at.
back to the previous negotiation, it's kind of something that we discussed and we agreed that, if somebody did have a question or an issue, we would both, we could in person get together, right?
So we have ethics
Did you actually,
policies
They removed it.
Oh,
outside of this, right? Outside of all this, and I'm just thinking out loud. When we're in negotiations in any contract, the contractors should not, by law, ethical, reach out to council members, right? And so if we're applying similar standards about we're negotiating something. And if they have questions, they always go through procurement to be able to put it in writing and then it's answered. Why don't we do that? If they have questions regarding a certain subject, And then we both agree on how we're both going to respond and agree on it and give it to them. Maybe, it's just an idea.
No, no, and I guess my only question is, even without what was added, what is the city stance on what C meant to begin with?
I mean,
I mean,
As far as letter C,
clarification of what
so-
C was
if,
as written.
as written, so issues that are happening within collective bargaining.
Mhm.
If both chief negotiators agree, a subcommittee can be created. But it would have to come collectively from both teams.
Okay, and so I guess the only question we have is in which manner is it gonna be in person meeting with that individual councilman, right?
And I would agree that is not clear by this thing. So we would have to come up with some sort of mechanism, a mechanism that can be agreed upon by the chief.
You know, certain councilman asking for certain specifics and just going over it with them. I really have no issue with that.
Now, would that,
To me, the exercise is expedient, it's sufficient because I have a question, you give me your stance, you give me your stance. Well, great, I have some follow-up questions, this is that, you give me your stance, point will taken.
and in that
Instead
same,
of basically going to, I understand what Ms. Carla was saying, but going through the whole process of putting something in writing, sending it to them if they have other questions. It seemed like a delay, so but I
But
have.
let's not change the situation. It's like, right now, this is what we're doing. Like you said, if it's not on the table, like,
No, but that article was there, that's what I was asking what
Yeah.
and so that's,
this was part of the ground rules of the last one.
it was already there, my only question was, what's the mechanism to address the question?
put it there, put it in writing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we're saying, so the subcommittee would meet with the council person?
We would request for it to be placed in writing.
And that's what we're saying, that is going to maybe make it a lengthier process. Or are they gonna just put their questions down in writing and they're answered in writing?
I mean, it could always be done in out loud in the form of council meeting. Because once we provide one-to-one, our responsibility is to provide the information to all of them.
Right, well, and and again, I'm only asking what was already in writing, what that meant, and then you explained it, that's, but if you're saying that that's not.
No, well, no, I'm saying, what else can we do?
Committee and one.
But there's no design of how we do it.
How would you actually,
I don't-
I guess it was
what process would take place
That
with
wasn't defined specifically, but I guess if you go back to the minutes. Specific person from either side would meet with that individual and answer any questions or concerns. And that was something that was.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, you know what?
Previously.
But how do we let each other know? So to be fair with both sides in negotiations, how do we know you're gonna meet with the council member and how do you
Oh,
know?
no,
we're gonna
no,
meet?
but no, it says here that they meet at the same time, that he negotiated.
Oh,
with
Yeah,
agreement.
so,
Right.
so the subcommittee, so the
So,
way it would work logistically, if I may.
Yes.
I think how it would work logistically is if either side finds out that there's a question,
Mhm.
that side under these ground rules would be
Notify the
permitted,
individual.
obligated to notify the other side, and then at that point, a subcommittee would be created. And then in that subcommittee, we would both answer the questions from the council member.
At the same
Or
time.
if- at the same time.
And so what do we put in writing and then let everyone else know? All your council members? What's
I
the
mean, I
next
guess
step
that's
after
a specific question to that.
No,
Tony was saying that question. Each
Is
individual.
specific to that.
That's
council member.
individual.
Bargaining team has a person that goes and answers the question.
I guess you're referencing being able to let everybody else know. I think it's just a specific question that somebody might have, just that one person. I don't think it's something that you would have to go and notify everybody.
No,
about-
we do, and it's specific to the department. We normally do.
And
Like,
we,
if
and we,
it's specific to the district, like if they say, well, you know, can you fix my part X, Y, Z? But if it's a citywide question, we provide the responses to all of them.
and
The same
I have no
response.
issue if one of our team members had to go in front of council and answer the question. My only concern is that it would create
We'll be-
negotiations at council.
Yeah, and I think we can also ensure, we can come up with mechanisms to ensure that it's transparent.
Right.
This subcommittee meeting can. Council member wants to know what
Just
was
add
going
that
on.
through
Yeah.
Recording.
That's fine.
Yeah, so on letter C, we can put
Wanna go with that?
a said subcommittee, it's just streamed and recorded. And that's it. Just my herbs. I'll flour it up a little more, I promise. But that's gonna be the gist of it, okay, guys? Thank you.
Nice, pretty fluffy.
Little, yeah, exactly. Just a page more, I'm just joking.
And look, under 174, under this process, right, it's like I mentioned. Here's the presentation, there it is.
Yeah.
Negotiations, I don't see anything else other than that, and what else would be included in that? It's either our members and council is gonna wanna vote yes or no. And that's
Yeah.
what's gonna boil down to.
Absolutely, no, I completely understand, and again, our concern is just. We don't want this decision to be made outside of this negotiation
Right.
table. That's our only concern, and that's not to say it's gonna happen. That's just, we wanna put it. This writing is basically giving us all accountability. That's all it is. And it's accountability because we are making a good faith effort to collectively bargain in good faith, right?
Yeah.
So that's exactly why we're doing this. Okay, we will make those changes to letter C. Okay, so number 8, contract document, we're almost done, guys, so
I'm sorry?
we're almost done. So number 8, contract document, may I continue on with that?
Yes.
Letter A. The contract document shall be created and maintained in Microsoft Word format. During the negotiations, a draft of the document shall be maintained by the city. And I know you put, and the association's chief negotiator.
Right.
Should we both have a working copy?
You can, at the end of the meeting, you could put a PDF, save it in PDF on a Google, on USB drive if you want. It's not the work on, it's more of a taking it small bits at a time instead of at the end of the contract, having to review everything in wording. That day, we know that we T8 on this, we have these agreements, here it is,
Mhm.
save, you can save it on a PDF. As a PDF document, so where I could basically work on it, that's fine as well. All it is so that once 2 articles are done, we review, okay, we know that that's the article, and that's it.
Fine.
But at the end of the
No, that's
day,
fine. What's the final version? I know there was a lot of confusion there, so I think this cleans it. Absolutely. Okay, so letter B, an adequate number of copies of all proposals shall be provided to all the members of the respective opposing bargaining teams for use at the negotiation session. Letter C, copies of the draft document shall be made available to the association's chief negotiator and or the association president upon request and within a reasonable time for use at the negotiation session. Excuse me. Letter D, the final version of the negotiated contract shall be maintained by the association secretary as well as the city secretary on behalf of the city of Laredo. Number 9, open meetings. A, the parties agree that negotiation sessions, except for team caucuses and any mediated sessions, are open to the public to the fullest extent provided by chapter 174 of the Texas Local Government Code.
can you read that again?
Pardon.
Number 9, number 9, open meetings.
Yeah, but here I have E, and so it was, did you cut out?
It's,
I'm looking at the old-
remember, I sent, yeah, you're looking at the old one. I sent you the working copy. And just for the record, the only reason why I sent in 2 versions was the first one. I tried to get away from not having. Now I have this, okay?
You
so-
deleted E,
Yes, I deleted E,
and then you
and now
went
it's
to A,
D.
the parties
Yes.
agree, okay?
So, okay, so letter D. If if in any way you see any changes, substantive changes between both formats,
Right.
please let us know and we will address the situation, okay?
Can we start over from, so you
Yeah.
struck out B? From B.
I don't think anything
I have a,
else.
oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so B, okay, so we can start from B.
Give me the first few words of the sentence.
The
That-
negotiation session will be publicly noticed and will be live streamed.
If I may
Session.
say something, I know
Yes, sir.
past few months when we're negotiating. Those sometimes the typo, like, oh, we put a time constraint and it was inappropriate or whatever. So we just put an opening time and not have to put a closing time.
Like a start time of 10 in the morning until we end, not to exceed 10 hours by what we've agreed upon here.
Clock.
And well,
We were here till 6.
yeah, and I think the reason behind that was that she was from out of town.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like I only have to travel just
Mhm.
half a mile that way. It's okay, so yeah, we don't have to,
Yeah,
I guess certain things from those sessions won't necessarily affect our
Yeah.
bargaining sessions.
yeah, I didn't know if there was a requirement that we had to have clothing or not, but if we don't have to, then I think it'd be better.
You know what, I can't say with 100% certainty if that is the case, but if there isn't, we can definitely make those changes, sir.
Okay.
All right, so we're, can you please read off, did you get it clarified or
Yes, so
Okay, so-
number, where we at?
we're at number 9, letter B? The negotiation sessions will be publicly noticed and will be live streamed and recorded by the city as a public meeting under chapter 174 and the Texas Open Meetings Act. The recordings of the negotiation sessions will be publicly available and shall serve as the minutes of the meeting.
Okay.
Number 10, letter A. Number 10, the bargaining process deadlines, letter A.
Mhm.
The parties intend to conclude the bargaining process within the impasse deadlines contemplated by section 174.153 of letter B. Each party reserves its statutory and other legal rights with respect to the bargaining process unless modifications are agreed to in writing. Number 11, negotiating time for bargaining members. The duly designated members of the association's bargaining team shall be allowed to attend bargaining sessions while on duty, subject to the discretion of the fire chief due to the staffing needs of the department as determined by the fire chief and the collective bargaining agreement deadline guidelines. I assume the last part of A is to make sure that provisions of the sees an issue with that? Okay, fantastic. Letter B. Members of the bargaining unit who are not named members of the only on their own time. No special prerogative or privilege shall be exercised to accommodate leave requests for personnel who are not named members of the bargaining team unless requested under the collective bargaining agreement guidelines. Similar language for a similar issue, if I'm not mistaken.
Some shifts have less members. I guess C shift, we only have one. So an example, if our treasurer were to be requested for association leave because we have lunch that day, we don't want to get caught up on, well, that guy, he's not part of the team. It's just, I think the president has certain rights under their contract as far as how to exercise them. We can follow it.
Any objection to that?
No.
Okay. And then 12 miscellaneous provisions. These ground rules being the subject of mutual agreement between the parties may be modified by the agreement at any time to serve the interests of the bargaining process, provided however, that any modification to these ground rules be in writing and signed by each chief negotiator. Letter B, these ground rules are to be self-enforced as procedural rules for the orderly conduct of business. The parties do not intend for these rules to be binding as contractual provisions. The end.
Sounds good.
All right, so
Let's
we
pick it
will-
out.
yeah, we're gonna make the changes. Could we caucus for just a little while? We make these changes, we'll have fresh, hot off the press copies for y'all to review. And then we can sign off if we're okay with that, all right? Fantastic. All right, we're gonna stop recording. Thank
Recording in progress.
All right, we are back from caucus. It is now 11:07 a.m. So I think our next order of business is to potentially go over some articles. But before we do that, it's a little different from last time, okay, guys? So just bear with me, all right? I think in an effort so we can collaborate and in the best interest of coming to a deal, I'm gonna give you all some homework. Is that okay? Give you all some homework. It's not gonna be 500 words essay or anything like that. Some homework,
Yes.
okay? I know. I knew I was gonna get a laugh, but that's okay. That's fine. It's a little homework assignment. And you guys collectively come up with a list. You're David Letterman. Are y'all too young for that reference? David, okay, good. Top 10. Your top 10 goals for this negotiation. Not only that, I want you to rank them. Number 1 being your most important. Number 10 being your least important. And we're gonna do the same thing. Whatever I'd ask you to do, I wouldn't have us do, okay? So And I, just as an exercise, all right? We have this exercise, we bring it to the next collective bargaining session. And I think we're gonna have some in common, that they're gonna be ranked, but let's see. All right, so just come to that. And if 10's too much, you can't think of a 10, don't make stuff up. If you stop at 5, you stop at 5, okay? Okay, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, 10 each.
And no, collectively, man, take us forever. You know, it's all in the details, but like, come on, y'all can agree to something, okay? Like your top 5, top 10, okay? And we'll do the same thing, all right? Common goals and we know what they are, then everything that we negotiate, we can always ask the question, how does this get to our common goal? All right, and I think that would help us out. Just humor me.
And I think ultimately it should be one goal, right? I think
No,
I'll be working towards one goal.
one goal, yes, and that's obviously the case, right? But what are the goals for your contract? What are the goals for the negotiation? Yeah, I think those are things that are important to do, and so that we can collaborate. I think it's a good exercise. And look, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least we tried something.
And expect a different result.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mann. I appreciate that. You're right. So we can't do the same thing and expect a different result. So maybe this helps, okay? Maybe this helps. I don't know, but let's try it out, all right? It's all right, man. Hey, it's an approach, right? All right, so now that's out of the way. That's out of the way. I know, Mr. Gonzalez, you sent me an email. You had some articles which the association was not recommending any changes. Those are articles 7, 16, 17, 20, 22, 26, 27, 32, collectively, and we'll be able to give us just our thoughts. I'm not saying that we're gonna go over these articles right now. I know you all have some articles that you all want to propose today, and I want to use the vast majority of our time for that. These are just, and we've gone over them in preparation. Article 7, okay? So this is the management. We will have a proposal on this for our next meeting, okay? So the ones that we won't TA today are the ones where we will have a proposal for next meeting, okay? So we can already start making a list of for that, and for the record, that's management organization. Okay, is everyone clear on that? Fantastic. 16. Educate. We too will have a proposal on that in the near future, because I think what we're gonna do, or we did last time, is talk about non-economic issues first, and I think that's a nice segue into this. Together.
My thoughts,
Please.
we've already done a lot of the work, and I think that if we can just go through it as the ones that we've already done, let's just go through whether it's economics or not.
Okay. All
I
right.
mean, we've already done a lot of talking.
Okay.
We've done a lot of talking already, so I think
Alright.
we know where we are.
Yeah.
Let's not fool ourselves.
So we,
Go to
yeah.
in order.
yeah, we will not be TAing number 16. We will have the city will have a proposal for you in this coming meeting or in the one after, okay, in subsequent meetings. Number 17. This is additional hours. Okay. I don't believe that this was TA'd in our last. My team Oh,
Yeah, we did.
I didn't see any proposals
No?
here or anything. like
Okay, I have
that.
my note, maybe it was just internal notes.
That's why I put it.
Okay.
so,
There was a proposal, there was a-
so on 17, on number 17 for the record, we can come to a tentative agreement on number 17. There will be no change made to number 17 as per the last contract, okay? All the.
Okay.
And number 20, number 20, we will have a proposal on number 20 for the next meeting. And okay, while we're on this subject, I'd also like to mention, due to the fact that we weren't, due to time constraints, we weren't allowed to get any guidance from this new council.
Mhm.
We don't have any proposals for you today. I want to put that out there. You don't have any proposals. We will give you a list of what we are going to propose for the next meeting as per the ground rules so that you can adequately prepare to discuss those items, okay? But the city today does not have any articles, but we are more than happy to listen and negotiate with you on the articles that you are presenting today. All right, just for
And maybe
clarification.
we can go to the list I did send you, if you have no proposal. Or you think that you can get to a TA on it, we'll pick those first. So that way we can make today a little bit productive. right?
Okay, and hopefully we can do that like at lunch.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, 'cause we're not gonna have a lot of time after that, but that way we can. Set up next meeting and then get TA what we can TA and then negotiate those where you have no proposal and maybe. We can get to an agreement.
Okay, that's fine. So number 20, like I said, and just to reiterate, we will have a proposal for you on 2022. Annual leave, vacation. We are willing to TA number 22, no changes. Um, 26 and 27. Just so we will have proposals for you on 26 and 27. (32), which is a maintenance of standards. We will be having a proposal on that one as well. And 37, grievance procedure. The union is recommending no change to the grievance procedure and the city's in agreement to leave the language as is, so we can TA 37. So right now, out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 articles where the union proposed, where the union proposed no change. Today, we are TAing 3 of those. And the other 6, we will have proposals for you at the next meeting or in some future date. Okay. So just to reiterate, 17, 22, and 37 are TA. Okay. Now I know there's some articles. Is there anything from anyone with regard to that issue? Anything? Okay. So if there's nothing on that, then I guess we can go with the proposals that the union does have prepared for us. And you don't have to go in order, but just I'll list them out. It's 3.
I just, since. I didn't print anything out because I didn't know which ones you wanted to. You know. 3, I sent you a follow-up email saying I inadvertently sent 3 because it's definitions,
Oh, okay.
so they may change, as we go through the article.
Oh, okay. So like, let's say we TA something and we need clarification. We want to define a word, then we would go to 3. So 3 is,
On the back burner.
yeah, there's a potential for an amendment to 3. I
So
understand.
when I sent it, we didn't have anything, but then I caught it, I was like, wait a minute, in case something comes up.
Okay.
TA.
That's fine. So we won't start with 3.
Yeah. And then
So-
from 4, 6, 8, 11, 12, 23, and 25, if the city already knows hey, it's okay, we think we can come to agreement on that, we don't have to talk to council on it. And we're fine to take those first. But that way, if you wanna let us know, so we can print them out. Okay.
So I guess the way, if you have a different way that's more expedient, please feel free. I feel that, let us know what your proposals are, give us your explanation as to why you came to these proposals.
Mhm.
And then at that point, we can go back, give you what we think about it, ask questions, and then we can have an opportunity to confer as a team to see if we will TA. Is that generally how it would work? Is there another way that you wish that this would go?
That's fine, I just,
Okay.
how many do you wanna print out?
Which ones
Because
are
I
you?
guess if you wanna print out the ones that we're ready to TA, and then I'll print out, or we'll work on printing out those that we're going to propose. It's because there's 1, 2, 3, there's 7.
Mhm.
I don't think we're gonna get all 7, or unless you want us to just give you the copies for the 7.
Do you have the copies for the 7?
No, I didn't print anything out. We were gonna print out here, from what I'm told.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yeah, we have
So-
them under.
Yeah, I'm ready to be print out. I just, which ones do you want to print out? Or do you want all of those?
Well, if they're gonna be proposals anyways, we're gonna have to need them, so we might as well get them all right now. Even if we don't get to talk about them, at least we have the copies in front of us, and you don't have to go through this exercise again.
Okay with that?
So y'all wanna take like 10 to do that? Is that enough time or?
Yeah, I guess I'll print out the TAs and we'll
Mhm.
print these out.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, guys. So we're gonna go off the record or take a little break? Thank you.
Recording in progress.
And it is approximately 11:48. We're back from caucus, and just for the record, we have signed TAs on articles 17. No, forgive me, 7, 22,
No, it was
17.
17, 22, and 37.
17, 22, and 37, and they've been signed by the chief negotiators and witnesses and been dated. Okay, so in order to proceed further, we're going to be receiving proposals from the union at this time. Thank you very much. Article 4. Anything else? And then.
Yeah. that's not me.
Azura and Linda.
So, do you have the copies? It's signed?
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't yet. We're just gonna wait for them to get embossed.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
But I was thinking, we went over this with the team, I guess it was already presented. I don't think it had to be negotiated.
That is correct.
So again, that we have the red language, or the font that's in red and underlined as the proposed new language. We have another 4.3. We're adding to provide services from the Red Fire Department, including but not limited to fire and or emergency medical services. Will include one association representative and voice to the city's designated negotiating representative. Voice, I think issues has to be in there, so. Voice issues to the city's designated negotiating representative in an advisory capacity only during the negotiation process. Because I think this was proposed as just clear up language of what type of services where an advisory position would come into play. I think the argument that the city made was that for all contracts, and it's just only for the services provided for by the Red Fire Department.
But not limited to.
Yes, can you please clarify, but not limited to?
What else would it include? Because it says, but not
But not
limited
limited
to.
to fire and emergency. Well, in case the fire department is asked to do other services, anything that would not be considered fire EMS.
Examples?
Yeah, so I guess the question is
Uh,
there something that has happened in your department that you're trying, a problem because it wasn't clear?
As
What
far as
problems
fire
have-
or
what-
EMS
what-
services?
Yeah, what problems have arisen that would require an amendment to
I
this?
don't have anything
Provision.
recently, and in the past, some have arisen, and there may be
Like what?
issues that were ordered as far as, something not contained under the duties,
Giving out portable water as an example, potable water, as an example to the public. I mean, I don't know if that would consider it a fire.
there's a concern, so. Under the duties and all in itself, on the article, right, under the duties of firefighting, where if we're covered or not, as far as workers' comp, and stuff like that. Well, this adds an extra layer to it as far as. That question hasn't been sufficiently discussed and addressed. So here we would be farming out those services. But we're still trying to figure out whether those services should be done by the fire department to begin with, right? So this would include anything Lincoln in there. An example is giving out water. They're sent out to give out water. Fire department sent out to give out water to one of the colonias because the city wants to help out. So under those, if any contract, you would have an advisor. Any contract is going to be made or discussed, an advisor would be there to discuss, or just to give input, right? Is the whole point of it. Does it mean anything? And I think. It doesn't mean anything on any other contract that doesn't apply to the fire department. If it's public works is contracted out to do something, it has nothing to do with the Laredo Fire Department. It's no issue. It's when the Laredo Fire Department and its personnel will be used. An example is signing a contract to provide, what is it, a van counting services with one of those 10 cities, right? So if there was a contract made, then there should have been an advisor. Now, that 10 cities outside the city of Laredo, of course, it should have been included. The sole reason why, because that association rep would be addressing concerns as, well, are they covered? What does the agreement say? You know, and then we get into, and it touches on 4.4 intergovernmental agreements. Is liability been negotiated away? We need to understand what's taking.
10 cities, I know that there was these migrants, right? And so I know that there's a couple of firefighters going to these areas to ensure that those numbers, like number counts.
Right.
Right? So that we. Right? Is that what you're kind of talking about?
Yeah, so if there was, in this, as an example, and so we don't know, and that's the part, since we don't know, the association wouldn't know, again, we go, whether there should be a grievance.
To do a duty,
It's covered,
Well,
no matter who.
not outside the city limits,
yes.
right?
Yes,
Yes.
Well, I know that's been,
Correction, if an employee is assigned under their department, rather than the business of the city, they are covered.
okay,
Um,
and that's written where,
we have it with TML, we've had it with for years.
and
with
so,
TML.
and that's why, again, and this is an article that was, I think, proposed, did you receive a copy of it?
So you want clarification in here? Maybe add clarification saying that you are covered outside the city limits.
Great example, and that was one. The other thing would be anything else in the future, right? So some other service that the department takes on, personnel will be taken care of. What the association is asking is to have someone at the table just as an advisor capacity. There's nowhere it says that representative has a right to make a decision, just as an advisor. Association member, that's a high ranking in the department. I mean, we have district. chief
Define, sit at the table, because a lot of the
Well,
time,
not, I'm sorry, not set at the
Emergencies.
table, it's for at the meeting to provide opinions. Yeah, so this provides when there's an intergovernmental contract. So, right, so if there's no intergovernmental contract and you exercise some other. Contracts,
okay,
So I guess my question is, the way 4.3 is written now in Article 4. I fail to see the ambiguity that you're referring to. I understand that you're clarifying it. Or you're trying, that's your intention, but it does say here that. Negotiation process. So 4.3 already gives you the right to be at the table and give your.
You know, where the way it's written right now, the concern was whether you're negotiating. Because
We don't
we're not
negotiate
abiding,
with
Or as an example.
No, so you're saying that that was a concern from the city. What does this mean? What type of contract? Those are the contracts that this article is addressing.
Yeah, yeah, so I think the last time we were here, there was an issue with, if we enter into an MOU with, UISD and the school is outside the city limits or something that's outside the city limits.
Well, is it complying with intergovernmental agreement, right?
Well, I mean,
And that's all it is, right? And I know it's from the last meeting, you had stated that, I do remember one of those meetings.
Hmm.
You had stated that you were going, with the fire chief, you guys had agreed to formulate intergovernmental agreements so that that is addressed. I guess my question would be, were those intergovernmental agreements
I don't have that
drawn
information.
up?
I don't have that
For
information
what-
right now.
I missed it. I was reading again. For what
Yeah.
question?
In the past, it was, because I think 4.4 touches on 4.3. So in those intergovernmental agreements, what was stated, and I think it was Joaquin that stated that he had spoken with the chief and one of the terms that came back, and that those intergovernmental agreements would be made so that we comply and everything would be taken care of, all the issues would be taken care of.
Mhm.
My question was, as an example, like, do we have those already? Like, did the intergovernmental agreement with UASD, has it been done with Border Patrol?
They go to council all the time. For example, we had an intergovernmental recently with FBI
Mhm.
on something or another.
Yeah.
So is that
I think
something
that's
you're
what-
thinking of?
I guess we talked about
It's
it
just-
last time.
It's just any intergovernmental contract that's going to be contemplated. Right, the city of Laredo shall comply with the Texas government code pursuant to intergovernmental relations. The moment you're going to sit down to enter into that moment, you would have an association rep just to make sure. Hey, remember this, hey, make sure is this taken care of? Like, yes, it is, there it is. Okay, fine, can I get a copy? Yes, all right, thank you very much. That would be it. It's nothing to add or any.
Be part
Any. Only. It's not to agree to any terms, not to sign off on any contracts. It's just if an intergovernmental agreement is going to be entered into. That an association representative can be in the meeting and make sure that any issues and concerns are addressed.
So
They will address them with the city's team. The city or representative, whoever is handling those negotiations or those meetings, and just in case anything is.
But sometimes it's not a. Sometimes we have no terms, for example, and I'm kind of trying to think outside the box. What if it's a grant, right? And so that's an intergovernmental, or like we receive a grant from a safer grant,
Right,
right? So you want.
but I don't think those are intergovernmental agreement contracts, are they?
So now, based on what you're saying, what you are wanting from 4.3. It's already stated here.
Well,
in
4.3, and Tony brought it, 4.3 language was basically. I think Ms. Ricardo brought it up.
We're good
Is
at
this
that.
all contracts? And it was like, no, just fire EMS. Oh, no, before the introduction of this word.
Well, yeah, because what I'm having a little bit of hard time is, but not limited to, it opens up everything. So if you would take out.
Okay, I see.
I think one thing is it references anything that the Laredo Fire.
I see what you're saying. So
And then I'm
here-
sure we can clear up the wording on that.
if I may, because here it says, where the city elects to enter into an intergovernmental contract with the county of Webb or any government entity or political subdivision, it will include run association representative. There, it makes it seem that anytime we enter into any intergovernmental contract for any purpose,
Right,
even if it's not fire, this
Yeah.
would sort of apply.
right.
So I
And
think,
that was
the
concern.
clarification is only if you enter into an intergovernmental agreement where the fire department is gonna be used for services.
Yeah.
And I think that's the clarification.
And
that
the
you're seeking.
included but not
Okay.
limited to fire and or emergency medical service is just in case.
Where you.
One of the services that doesn't fall under the umbrella of fire or EMS would be triggered, say arson, right?
Hazmat.
Or if hazmat. So that's gonna be triggered. If it doesn't meet the actual definition of fire or EMS, if it's a service that the Laredo Fire Department is providing. And we're narrowing it to because it's only the Laredo Fire Department. So that wording is only to umbrella or blanket any services that may not actually fit the definition, or in case another service is provided by the Laredo Fire Department in the future, that it maybe isn't fire or EMS.
My concern is that you all provide, because let's be clear, you all do more than fire and EMS. So like, for instance, to your point, Mr. Delgado, giving out water. I mean, some would argue that when there's a situation where there's an emergency, people are in need of water,
Right.
that's an emergency situation. I don't see why the fire department would be
Yeah.
precluded from doing that.
So they're not.
Okay,
This is if an intergovernmental contract is going to be entered into. If something, and we go back, if something triggers and a response has to be made, the response will be made, and there's other articles that address if that response doesn't fall under the duties, are we doing this, are we doing that? This is only if in anticipation of, you know what? City X outside of the city limits might want our services if there's a tornado. Okay, we're gonna enter into a contract, intergovernmental contract with them. At that time, you sit down to discuss what's going to be on those terms. An association representative will be there just for input purposes only. If there is no intergovernmental contract being proposed or discussed, then there would be no rep at the table to discuss anything. If it's a trigger that needs to happen, the mutual city agreement, right? We have an agreement, it's already in writing. So that's not going to trigger anyone for the advisory role. As you're going to enter into that agreement, say it took place 20 years ago, someone would have sat there and made sure all the T's were.
What about emergency declarations? I mean, that's something that the judge or the mayor do on their own. And we're not even at the table, but it involves all of us at some point.
Right.
I don't want to put.
It's not- and it does.
It's not a contract.
It's-
that would not,
Emergency.
It's just a declaration.
So it's a declaration to do.
And it's only,
Depends.
It's a
because-
declared disaster where.
No, it depends to say this is, and this is what we need to
well,
do.
an intergovernmental agreement would be an agreement between us and another government entity. So it could be a political subdivision like a school district, another municipality,
Border Patrol,
An-
EPS,
with the county. So so you're saying that this would be limited strictly to the entering into intergovernmental agreements with
Yes.
other, government organizations?
whatever falls under the
Declarations
statute.
of disaster or.
Okay, because,
When you think about contracts, you're thinking long term. We're not talking about an emergency that happens that we need to take care of right now. That's not water right now because water lies down. That's not the same thing.
Mhm.
We're talking about contracts that are long lasting. You
Okay.
know, that's what we're talking about.
No, no, no.
That's intergovernmental contracts that are long lasting, not immediate emergencies.
But tornado hits Ensenada and Santos.
No,
That's
I-
not the problem.
I completely understand that.
And that's where the, what do they call them, the sister city agreements trigger, right?
Mhm.
See, but at the time that agreement was made, there would be someone there, right? Or not, is it sister city, the mutual
Yeah, no.
agreement, sorry,
No.
mutual aid
No, they
agreement.
just,
mutual aid.
the cities,
I'm
what we
sorry.
do, sister city,
I'm sorry, it was the mutual aid agreements, I think we have mutual aid involved.
we do sister city agreements where we do trainings.
Yeah, but so if it's not fire EMS.
Well, there's
Right.
fire one.
Okay, see, so in that case, it's a intergovernmental contract. And say in that case, it would be, all right, they're going to travel to Beijing, right? All right, we know these are the requirements that need to be covered in an advisory, and if the city already took care of it, then that role would basically would have no input because it's taken care of. In a case something was missed, and it would be like, hey, make sure this, and I'm sure the city's legal team would like, oh yeah, you're right, maybe I forgot it. Not that it would ever happen, right? I don't think you guys would ever miss anything.
Not on our watch.
But just in case, that's all it is, right? Advisory. role.
Yes, sir. No, I understand where you're coming from and yeah, absolutely. My only concern is
Yes,
4.4. I don't think that we need to make a contract provision for the city of Laredo to follow the law. I think it's redundant.
I agree, and that's why I asked if, were those agreements made, or did you guys look at it?
I don't have that information right now, but I can get you that information at our next bargaining session.
Yeah, and that'll work. I mean, so the thing here is that when we look at it again, we're like, okay, well, we'll ask if those agreements were made, because if that's the case, then you're seeing the exercise work, right?
Mhm.
Now, if they weren't, because I do remember, I think I was here for that little piece in the meeting, then we should have, right? We should have entered into those agreements, especially if at the table, the fire chief and city attorney said.
What
we
are
are-
agreements? Like, give me an example.
So in order for certain things to trigger under UISD and Rio, we respond to UISD and Rio, completely sending our personnel out there. Not only outside the city limits, into the county and then into another.
But those are emergencies, like I say, there's a,
No, that's for a nosebleed, a headache, anyone at UASD, it's for any. So all that would say was who has the liability or recovered, and Mr. Niente mentioned, that's in the TML contract. Great. But should have an agreement with UASD that we will be responding, right? Whether you want to build or not build, that's no one.
but we're not doing that anymore, because they have their own, right?
No. Right. UASD. And so all we're saying is, the city can enter into any contract allowed by the law. In cases where an intergovernmental contract should be entered. And is contemplated, and then someone would sit there in an advisory role capacity. And nothing further.
And that's only if we would be required pursuant to the
Right.
Texas Government Code
Right.
to enter into these interlocal.
Now,
interlocal
I'm
agreements.
sure the union president would come in like, hey, as a perfect example, that one. We're going to UISD in another city. Right? Where's the agreement? How do we know what's covered? right.
If one is required. It
Right.
would, the
And then,
circumstances would have to.
your offers would say, here is why it's not required,
Mhm.
or here is, you know what, maybe we should require it.
So
And all we're trying, yes,
how often do you have to do this?
do you, I
Well-
haven't been at 14 in a while, to go to
I mean, it
UAV.
has happened, you know, not even just.
Early January.
Like how frequent, like, is it like a daily basis?
No.
No.
Say monthly,
Like once a month,
Right.
maybe?
but that's UASD now, so, and I'll give you a perfect example. I was working for Randall actually doing a payback. We get called out because they thought it was a DPS agent that was now, we were going to a grass fire on a 13-mile marker. The call comes in, a DPS agent has a heart attack, like at the 60-mile mark. Minutes. I radio in, it's a DPS officer, we're supposed to respond, there's no hesitation. Let's respond, and I asked the firefighter, check if we're in the city, because we shouldn't be going out the city. It's borderline, like the access road is, but this part of the highway isn't, and
You don't
the
know.
individual's name in the median. Like, we're going, make sure you park on the city side though, right? And so we're trying to cover this as much as we can. In the immediate response, but we do know. It might get tricky here. We still go, the Webb County's EMS shows up before our EMS shows up. You know, making the decision, are you taking them? Yes, he's in cardiac arrest, let's go. I get my personnel on the ambulance, on the Webb County's ambulance, right? And they try. Cruise forward. Right, on the liability side, what were you doing? What we
But
thought
no,
was a
no,
DPS
no,
agent.
because the supervisor, which was you, who works with City of Laredo,
Right.
made a determination in the best interest of safety and health, and you covered.
And we would host now the private insurance if we had a wreck, if something were a rollover, if something would have happened.
So,
Well, there's enough litigation going on that we know that the TML side or workers' comp side would try to, it's happening in Michigan, I think is the case still going on. Even the city has voiced and written a letter. We want to cover this individual. They're still saying no. All we're trying to do is basically make sure the firefighter, when he's rolling out, is covered. One, two, brought up a good point, the supervisor ordered. I've in the past filed multiple grievances on. All this grievance is asking is for us to come up with a literature so that the supervisor knows the orders I'm giving are lawful. Just as a tool so that I can, as a supervisor, educate myself further to make sure that the order I'm giving is lawful. I can check it off, I can make sure, and if questioned, we can cite to something and say, this is what we followed. If anything, it's actually to protect the city and the fire department from liability in these scenarios. All we want to happen is that, remember the buffer, right? The grievance for the buffer. It wasn't about the buffer, right? It was, we know there's a safer way of doing this. We're not doing it. We're giving the order. All we want is what's going to be covered so that I know how to proceed in the future as a supervisor. It's call it to build out a training tool, right? How can we recommend to our department or to our supervisors? This is how you should proceed on these issues. right now, I think we were discussing it during this morning. On some of these issues, there is no policy. So a lot of it is. Well, should we have one? We're a big department, we're a big city, maybe we should start addressing this. And that's why it's a perfect example. Well, have we gotten these local government? Local. Intergovernmental agreements.
Agreements, yeah.
Tongue twister. Hey, and if not, then maybe we should, right? So, and all we want is to make sure that there's a mechanism that we can say, hey, we're not following this, maybe we should follow it.
And if it's on a case by case basis, and again, I mean. 4.4, it really doesn't do anything for the article. I mean, I mean, and that's what I'm saying, like, let's take out surplusage, right? Like, if it doesn't have any sort of effect on any rights or responsibilities, then why put it in?
Well, then,
So we'll walk us through.
Okay.
It's the law. Texas Government Code says this.
Mhm.
If you're not complying with it, we would work.
If we are not complying with.
Right, so we have an agreement, but. You didn't follow the steps in
Yeah,
under the
we
government
would've
code.
Not had a contract is because there was an emergency, but like on a consistent basis.
For
it was-
example, the UASD going out of town for border patrol, and no one is saying we should.
But LID, I go back to USD, I was not aware that you all were making these calls frequently, you're saying like once a month.
Brought it up,
Have you brought it up?
we brought it up last negotiation cycle and. Joaquin and the fire chief agreed to work on these agreements and they said, we'll come back to you guys with these agreements.
When I was at station, what I would do is when we get to a certain point, I would radio. And I don't know if we discussed this last time. My chief officer told me, he's retired now. He said, what are you doing? Because I radioed in, be advised, I'm at the city limits. Do you want me to I was like, so that I can get the recordings later, like in case something happens, who gave me the order? Oh, well, let me put him in that position. Like, well, do you want me to get into the position? This was back in the day, right? And I use it as an example because. We get to the point where we have a lot of promotions, we have a lot of people moving up. So the question comes up, what do I do in this scenario? And so as we're trying to build this highly educated and trained department. If as a experienced officer with so many years as a frontline officer is, I can't answer that. Because that question has never been answered for us. And that's where the association is saying, well, maybe we should address that and answer, right? It's not asking for the city to get into any better liability, not asking for a union representative to have an ability to stop a contract or force a contract. It's just, hey, do we have this? Because we've been asking about this and we still don't have an answer. And we think we should, as far as so that our officers can give lawful orders. Or that we can follow or know what not to do, right? I think you brought up an example, Randall, as far as that the firefighter that got demoted because he.
Yeah, it just happened, it just happened up in, I think it's Dallas or somewhere. Firefighter, they don't run EMS and fire together. Fire truck rolled out to second-degree burns. On a child. They got there, EMS was 30 minutes behind. They waited 30 minutes, still nothing. So they put the patient in the fire truck, took the child to the hospital. The officer that gave the order, nothing happened. It was, everything was safe, everything happened, got demoted for it. Well, why did he get demoted? Well, because their policy said you don't use emergency vehicles as a transport vehicle. So we run into a lot of situations here where we don't have policies. Going into the county happens all the time. We have an intergovernmental agreement, right? Mutual aid agreement to the county. Last time I saw that mutual aid agreement, there is a mechanism for it to be activated. You know, the fire chief from the county calls the county judge calls the city manager calls the fire chief, okay, it's activated. That's a mutual aid agreement, right? Well, we don't do that, and then also not mutual aid agreement, it used to state for natural disasters. Okay. We have a DPS rollover. We have border patrol injured. We have a car on fire, a multi-vehicle accident, a bus rollover. We're rolling to all of those.
A UIZ bus.
A UIZ bus.
Went outside, are we gonna go get him or not? And we don't have an issue going to
We're
go get
happy to
him.
go.
Understood.
The issue is, hey, if we go, are we good, right? And that's all that's being asked. Are we good? Is the wording been taken care of? And this is the role of the association, right? I'm a firefighter at my station. I'm thinking the organization is making sure this is being complied with, right? They're the person I would go to for if I had a grievance to file. They check into it, and I think this is the exercise of, hey, all we're asking for is to make sure this is really being followed. I don't think it adds any monetary or constraints on the city's ability to enter into any contract with anyone. All it is an advisory role, and 4.4, all it is like, hey, are we gonna follow these requirements or not? So you're saying, well, why would we do something if we already have to follow the law? And that's why I will explain to us the procedure then. Do we have to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with UISD if we're responding outside the city limits?
I would have to check into that.
And
I
then,
know I looked it up previously. I would just have to look it up again.
so all we're saying is if we do have to, then let's do it, right? That's it. So this mechanism would be 4.4. Hey, chief. Joaquin told us that we have to, do we have the agreement already? And in the interim, and this is the bigger question, in the interim, do we stop services until the agreement is entered?
So the interlocal agreements. The Texas Government Code allows for these interlocal agreements because there is a section on when to government. So I guess the legal question is,
That's
can
791.
yes, can the governments enter into agreements with one another? The answer is yes.
Yes.
With these interlocal government, and there's certain, and the statute also provides for all of the things that are necessary that need to be put in by statute in these agreements.
Right.
But that's if they wish to.
Right.
Okay, if they wish to. Now, if you are getting from the deputy city manager and HR, that if you get a directive to go outside and that you are covered, there is no need for that interlocal agreement whatsoever.
Okay.
There's no need.
But there would be a need for. If a request is made, so be it. But you say there's no need, then where in writing does it state that we will be covered? Should we put it into the contract? Should we?
And that
are
you're
we
not
gonna be given-
specifically talking about intergovernmental,
Yeah,
you're just
so-
talking
so
about
it's-
anytime.
Yeah,
Anytime
Is it all right on our end to say? Okay, great, an agreement, can we just have it so that it's in writing, so that we know that it does exist, and that we know what we're. Or better yet, we know what procedure needs to be followed, so that that can be taken care of, right?
Well, I guess what we can do is, obviously, you're looking for information, right?
Right.
You're looking for information, so I think that it's possible for us to get with our HR director. Send something to TML. And if you have these questions, we can get them answered from TML.
Right, and so,
If there's a lawful directive from a supervisor in the fire department, they respond outside of city limits and they are performing duties that are within their job description.
right.
Are they going to be covered? And that's what you're asking for, and I think that can be done.
And
Well,
more importantly, is what this grievance was, or in the past.
This is having to do with this in the library system. You have to the contact with law enforcement, another inquiry.
Beyond
Government.
0.004 or
It's 0.006.
six.
Mostly law enforcement. Yeah.
Oh, that's law enforcement. I see that.
It's not required.
And if it needs to be done, let's do it. Now, as far as on the, what you mentioned, the lawful order. I had filed this grievance in the past, and what it was is asking just for that. Except with a little bit extra. What will TML consider a lawful order?
Yeah.
What checks do I have to go through as an officer to say? 1, 2, 3, and 4 are done in ordering you go. Right?
No, absolutely.
And that's it, and that's all, that grievance, that's all, the resolve was. Can I get this as a supervisor, because I would like to know this, so that when I give out orders, I know I'm not getting my members in.
In a situation where they may not be covered.
Right.
No,
That's all it was.
I completely understand that, but I think that instead of putting 4.4 into the agreement, I think the easier thing, instead of adding more language to the contract, would be to provide that necessary information for your officers.
Okay.
And the city of Laredo can do that. If we can get those questions answered for you, I think we can forego 4.4. I mean, amend your proposal.
Right,
And
and if that's the situation, and if the 2 months, we can.
Okay,
The idea is, and I go back to one of the articles that when we said we might bring back, the T8 ones.
Mhm.
All it is if we're in collective bargaining, and we're in sessions, then this issue should come to the table.
Of course.
Now, it doesn't mean that wording would be into the contract, it doesn't mean that an article would be addressed, but the issue would be resolved, right? And that's, the idea is, that there's a proposal for a specific reason, and this is what needs to be done.
Render this emergency assistance at this point.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, I think if it's emergency assistance, but even if the statute says that if you're rendering emergency assistance, you don't have to enter into an interlocal agreement.
Right.
I think the issue, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, is that you want to know the extent of your coverage of liability if something happens to you,
That's
okay?
why-
Answer those questions.
Right, and again, it's not saying that it's not being done or you're in violation. All it is again, we go back to, in the spirit of all this.
Mm.
If an issue, we know there's an issue there, then this is actually the proper venue to bring it up and say,
Of course.
here's the issue. Some of it might not make language into the contract, and that's fine if that's what everyone agrees on.
And so,
But if the issue is handled and we have it, okay, then now we understand, right?
and we can bring those issues because it's an issue of employment, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
wages,
Condition of
employment, it's part of good faith bargaining. I completely understand. Okay,
So if not, this would be where we bring it up.
are there any comments, concerns about what's been talked about at the table with regard to Article 4?
Article 4, except again, I go back to not limited.
Well, this is their proposal. We'll come back with our changes, okay? Anything, guys? No? Okay. All right. So we'll move on from that one, and then we'll proceed with your next article.
We have Article 6.
Article 6.
While you're doing that, I'm going to go to the rest.
You want to take a break?
Okay.
This is what-
It's
Yeah,
10 minutes,
or
15 minutes, whatever you all want.
Are you asking for lunch purposes or for, yeah, lunch, okay.
Okay, lunch?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. All right.
It's already there.
Oh, okay. Oh, I can smell it. It's 12:22 PM and we're taking about an hour for lunch,
25 minutes.
or 30 minutes for lunch. Okay, thank you.
Recording in progress.
All right, the time is 1:03. And just for the record, we've already discussed Article 4, and we're off to the next article to discuss their proposal.
So on Article 4, we went back and some of the points you made, we're gonna go in and I guess for the next meeting, we'll make tweaks to 4.3. We're gonna remove or work on 4.4 and add some language to it. Some of the points that you all made. Understood, and then there was some other points that, I guess as we discussed it, maybe we weren't clear on some of things, so we'll go back and work.
Okay.
And those things.
Yeah.
All right, so.
And
So I guess for the you, unless you are working on it, but we'll be proposing something else.
that's fine.
4.3, there's some changes that we kind of tweak with 4.4. Maybe not word it that way and add to it. So, but I guess we'll come back to it.
Okay, and just for the record, I know that we said that the city will be providing some information from you from TML for guidance for your commands. I've already spoken to the HR director, Mr. Deteniente, and we'll be working on getting you all that information.
Okay.
Hopefully to,
We need a request for TML to provide an writing to see what they're covered, especially if they're going outside city limits.
Right, and I guess the requirements is what we need to follow.
yeah, and it would define what a lawful order is.
That's the problem, is because the last contract negotiation, we brought in HR and everything, we had this discussion about what a lawful order was and whether you'd be covered, and some of the things that we do on a daily basis, they told us it was not gonna be covered. So we're not doing this as a firefighter, we're like, but we do these on a daily basis, and they're orders given by the officers to go do something.
That was the interpretation of that directive,
Right,
not,
Okay, and so, and I think, well, TML is the one that insures the city.
Mhm.
So getting information or a legal opinion from their legal team or from their directors is going to be controlling And, I guess we can just wait to see what their opinions are before we start making any other tweaks and.
Or if you want, we can hold back and vote for until we get that. Instead of bringing it back and negotiating, we still don't have the,
I've already put the request in, so it.
I'm saying so that we don't schedule.
Article 4.
Article 4 for next meeting.
So we get.
Okay,
We don't, so that way we'll get that and then we may with that even tweak further before, I guess, the.
okay. So are you, just for my clarification, are you taking it off the table right now?
Yeah, we'll take it off the table.
And we can put it back on by agreement?
By agreement, we'll wait till the TML language comes in
Mhm.
and then that'll determine if we have to or not want to word something, right?
Fair enough.
Instead of just continuously working on an article that may change anything.
All right,
So we'll
sounds
take
good.
that back. You can pick up 4. Am I right?
You're gonna turn them all back in?
Well, we got, we want to stay with it.
Well, we're just gonna stay with them just so we know what your initial proposal was. We can keep a record.
That works. The next one is Article 6. It's one of those that I think was T8 on previously,
Mhm.
as we've,
So before we go on, the 3 articles have already been TA, have already been embossed, just pending the ground rules that.
Yeah, the ground with someone had,
Grant, no.
well,
No, it's just the,
was signed.
those ones signed, I'm not
these were
sure.
mine,
Oh.
Yeah.
Do
I don't have it.
you have the one that was signed, the ground rules?
you stay with.
Did I stay with it?
Yeah, you did.
I did.
No,
Oh, you know what?
show up later.
It's right there. Yeah, I remember.
It's okay.
That's awesome. I'll say, but I don't have it. Yes, you do. She does. We're good.
Maybe you want Amber to take care of it.
Yeah.
She feels like.
It wasn't in the folder, that's why.
It's okay. We're good. We're good. We're good.
You have one free
It's in the folder now.
All right, so
Article 6, the right to management.
thank you so much.
And so, as I guess the negotiations previously have been going, I went on issues that were happening, some issues that I guess happened just this last roster change.
next one.
Again, when we spoke about it at the team meetings, it was, where do we address them? I'm like, well, that's where to address them again at the table, right? That's
Okay.
where they should be addressed. So most of them is adding, referencing other parts of the contract, right? So, letter A. And so we understand 6.1, except otherwise specifically provided in the agreement. The association recognizes that the city has the sole and exclusive right to exercise all rights or functions of management. So a lot of this, or most of it, is already referenced in the agreement, but when read as a 6.2 standalone, it kind of seems like this article kind of contradicts the other article, right? So we were trying to just mirror to make sure that it coincides with the respect of what the collective bargaining agreement is. So in A, we added, so directing the work of all fire department employees to include the scheduling of regular and overtime work and modifications of work schedules pursuant to Article 3, Article 5, 10, 12, 17, and 32. We wanted to reference those articles in this area. The perfect example, quick example, is the overtime work. That's also in Article 17, where it states the union president and the fire chief will agree on the overtime policy. When read alone, 6.2A, it seemed that the fire chief alone would address the overtime policy. Right, so that's why we wanted to reference the other parts of the contract, not adding other language other than pursuant to these articles, right?
Would you be restricting for both of you, if we failed to add an article?
Well, that's what we kind of thought of, and so we wanted to discuss it first before any wording, right? So we went through the article, see what each of these areas would.
If I may, I think that this listing actually hinders your ability to grieve. If you're asking me, and I'm not trying to advocate for your position or anything, but when you put words in here, this is, and remember, it doesn't say, but not including, it basically, a reasonable person can read this and say, oh, well,
It's only these articles.
it's only these articles.
And we thought of that, but we wanted to list them in case there was discussion on it. Because we initially or pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement or the other sections of the agreement, or right?
Like,
But not
further
limited
down
to-
on D, that's what you start pursuing to the.
Right,
collective bargaining.
but in these areas, we wanted to reference because these were kind of more specific to regular work,
Mhm.
overtime work, right? The other ones is more broadening as like, which is letter D, is like the right to manage the affairs of the fire department in all respects, right? So like, well, not in all because the collective bargaining agreement. But in these other ones, just kind of
Well,
to specifically reference.
so I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this entire contract lays out your rights as employees as part of the union, correct?
To a certain degree,
Certain
it also,
And the fire chief.
it also
And the
governs
fire
the
chief,
fire chief to
yes.
a certain degree, right?
Fire chief, it, pretty much everything that,
City and other areas, right?
all the privileges that are based in this contract are yours, and if the fire chief were to ever do something that hinders those rights, you have a grievance and any of those things, right? So my question is, already you have,
But the contract is not all
what do
of,
you,
of those rights, right? There are other rights that firefighters do have.
oh, absolutely, but at the
You know,
same,
when you said all, right?
well, yeah, it's the contractual rights, I should say, right, the contractual rights of firefighters, right? Again, it's.
And we're not amenable or to amend it to say, you know, pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement.
Mhm.
What we, but some of the issues occurred, I guess what was, I don't know if it was told to the association president or the board was, oh, it's under management rights. Like, well, if you read it standalone, yes, but and a perfect example to point out is the overtime, right?
Mhm.
Because that doesn't even specifically reference it in the contract. It just states that that right has now been given to the president and the fire chief to agree on.
Correct.
Right, so that's why we're like, okay, we'll pursue it to whether the articles or pursuant to the CBA. So to get away from it's just a standalone, right? And D is the perfect one where it's stated. Department in all respects, or not in all, pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement, right?
And you're saying what letter is that again?
So like in D is the perfect example of what the right,
The intent.
the intent of what we're doing here or working on is under the rights of management. You see that the maintaining the efficiency of government's operation, determining fire department policy, including the right to manage the affairs of the fire department in all respects. D alone would say, yeah, the rest of the contract doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, D alone supersedes A, B, C,
Right.
E, F, you know.
So we were just trying to not delete or take away, but just to reference, well, yes, but in these scenarios, you do have to follow the contract. It's just not, you know, a blanket. The fire chief will make the decision on it.
I mean. So, let's just say. The fire chief creates a policy and it violates one of your contractual rights under this agreement.
Right.
What is your remedy?
Agreed.
Okay.
Right.
And if he were to still violate it with this language, what's your remedy?
Agreed.
My point exactly, how does this change the position that you're in right now?
This,
Because he might
This
think he's
contra-
right,
this-
he reads that alone.
yeah,
Like
this would seem
clarifies.
contradictory language. It's like, you know, I'm not even bother with it. This is my right and I'm going off rights and managements alone. So
I mean, I guess.
we know that, well, no, we have these other rights and you would file the grievance. But as we're looking at it, and maybe some of these things that are, and I wasn't privy to maybe some of the issues that are currently, but the union board is like, yeah, we have this issue because is it management rights or not? Like, well, it is their rights pursuant to being governed in this manner.
I think this article has not kept up with the kinds of negotiations that as we've negotiated new articles in. This hasn't been addressed. Management rights they've never gone back and said, hey, you know, you don't have sole and all respects. We have new articles. Well, and if we end up going to a grievance procedure, this is gonna come up. That sentence right there, well, in all respects. Well, yeah, which one came later? This one or the overtime policy article? Which one was negotiated at a later date? And that's what you're gonna end up, you're gonna have conflicts in the contract. That a arbitrator is gonna have to decide, well, which one holds more weight, which one came first, which one was negotiated later. Or we can just address it now and make sure that everybody understands that article was negotiated at a later time, so it should supersede. He has not all authority in all aspects.
Yeah, in attempt to maintain the flow of the article, because like Randall said, as articles have changed, this was not kept up. For whatever reason, it can actually be kind of productive from article to article.
I thought we started negotiations every single time with a new contract, whatever came first or last. I'm not getting that.
So,
Well,
I'm not studying.
that the articles could be argued that, well, no, I do have that right, and it could be perceived as contradicting, although it shouldn't be read that way, right? Because it is addressed in the contract and 6.1 kind of points that out, but then 6.2 kind of stands alone and says, okay, now here's the description of what we're talking about.
So at one time, the fire chief, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. At one time, the fire chief had the sole responsibility and authority to do the overtime policy, however you want it. Then we negotiated. So when we negotiated a mutual agreement, well, that negotiation came after this was put in. That one should supersede it because it was agreed upon at a later date. That became the new standard.
We're kind of
Not full
explaining, we're
authority.
kind of change the meaning of this part, but.
So that's why we're having an issue because
But
this is
what does
one
the
of those
overtime
articles
policy say now?
that there's a mutual agreement between the fire chief and the union
Well,
president.
the contract says that.
Yeah.
Right now,
The current
There's
policy is being worked on.
numerous variations of how overtime is hired, and it's being currently worked on because of.
if I may address your point, Mr. Manning. So what you're talking about, and let's go back to the time when overtime was at the sole discretion of the chief.
Sure.
The interpretation based on the language in that contract at that time, the management rights would trump because there is no protection for you. There's no contractual protection.
Right.
But now that there's a new contract, that new provision automatically would not, even with that language in there, would not allow the chief to pursue an overtime policy without consulting with the union president. So because of this additional language, it completely changes the meaning of that provision automatically. That would be my argument, sir.
And to
I think
somebody
that's-
that's negotiating that, I would understand that, but to somebody who's an arbitrator that's reading this article and that article and the conflict. When you say department in all respects,
Well, and I hear you, but if I am, and I'm just gonna put on the hat of an arbitrator. What, the first thing that I read in Article 6, except as otherwise specifically provided in this agreement, that is a catch-all policy. So no matter what it is, A through, that's a lot, A through Q, as long as it doesn't touch what is specifically provided in this agreement, the interpretation would be that the chief has the management right to change that thing.
Right.
So my suggestion, and I get it, you're trying to clarify,
Well, and
but I think it's already clear as it is, but
Well, and I'll give
I
you,
hear what you're
I
saying.
guess, an example of that. Okay, well, then if you reference the overtime work already, why did you leave it in here? Right, so in letter A, it says that the fire department employees, that he has the right to direct overtime.
Mhm.
Well, then why would you leave it in if you addressed it already, right? So. I agree with you. I would say, no, that article is controlling, right? It says it there. But then. It comes up again where it's still giving them. The perception that, oh, well, you might be able to tweak or amend it or look at it, right?
And I would argue that A is correct. But because of the new Article 17, he still has the right to direct overtime. But now you have Article 17 saying, but not without the union president.
And which is why we're saying pursuant to this article or pursuant to the collective bargaining in there,
Mhm.
right? That's the whole, well,
Yeah.
right, to read it and understand, oh, yes, there is a provision in the contract that that spells that out.
I just find it a little hard to believe that an arbitrator who would look past the first
Well, I
sentence of the,
understand that.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm
If I
sorry,
may,
Mr.
I
Delgado.
mean, maybe not an arbitrator, but a employee or a future fire chief might misinterpret it and cause a misunderstanding and force the grievance process to even start up to begin with, when it could be avoided, and make it easier for them to realize, would have Article 17 attached to it in a sense, right?
well, and the other issue is
Just to
it's not only
avoid
the
that.
fire chief, it's not only the fire chief, it's the city, it's the, or whoever, on management rights. Well, the city has contracted away some of the rights that are spelled out here, right? Or contracted amendments to it. And that's, we were just going through it as some of the issues that the board brought up. To go over and say, okay, well, then maybe we can address it here. That would maybe clear it up or remove all confusion, or if there was any, right? Or the perception of it. And that's why we were bringing it up to where that would happen.
And
And
I,
there's specific instances on some of these things that we're like, well, do I have that right or not? Well, this article says yes. Well, I think I can do it. And so it's trying to like, well, no, let's get to what it really is.
I think that if we were to try to add language in order to explain away every situation that could possibly come up at your department, this thing would be 1,000 pages long.
I agree.
So I'm thinking that this one proviso, except as otherwise specifically provided. Again, it's my interpretation that I think you're covered. I just,
Okay.
yeah, go
All
ahead.
along the same line,
Yes, sir.
well, then why is all of the rest of the article written? Because it says, unless otherwise specifically said in this contract, the fire chief retains all the other rights, right?
Let's limit.
Why do we go A, B, C, D and list all of these
Let's
other
delete
things?
it because it's probably something you are requested for it to be written. You can delete it.
A, B, C, D, E, and F,
Because, and
all of managing rights?
well, the thing, and here it is. The way this is written, if we were to take out A through Q, then there's a possibility that the chief can make policies that go beyond A and Q. As long as he's not affecting your contractual rights, then in essence, that would give your chief more power. I'm just
But
cautioning
isn't
you.
that the city stance as is? That if it's not. in
Unless
this
it's
contract,
otherwise in this contract.
It's not, and then we have, or by the law, we have that right. I mean, it mentions it, right?
I just think that we make it a little more confusing by deleting those things. And I think it's gonna open up more grievances.
Then leaving it in and clarifying
Yes,
within
yes,
pursuant to
yes.
this contract.
And we don't have to specifically, it's just pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement. And because, and what we're looking at it in some of the sections, and I'll give you an example. What is it? C, suspending or discharging employees for just cause subject to chapter 143 of the Texas Local Government Code. That's misleading because there are articles that we waived our rights to chapter 143, right? DNRs, and some other specifics. And DNR is the main one where, well, we waived our right to 143, but here it says, well, no, suspending and discharging is the 143. And
And also another observation, some of the articles that you're naming on here, they're also part of the discussion points that has to be reviewed, so.
yeah,
They're
and
not established yet or.
well, they're established, it's just.
Look at that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we're saying,
Yeah,
so, yeah, but you're not going to remove the article completely. It's going to end up with whatever, if any, amendments are. Just list them to see how many are actually, is that's why, and we have no issue going to pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement. What we're trying to reference though is that, and that C is again, another example or perfect example of. Suspending an employee is not just solely chapter 143, there are other articles. That touch on it, or we've waived our rights to it, right?
And,
So that's what we were trying to do is just, all right, to clarify that as you read that, it's not only 143. That's all. If the city doesn't want to add article here 17, article 17, we've already TA'd on. It's not going to change it. This will reference article 17. Whether an amendment or a proposal is agreed on or a change 10 times and then TA'd on and approved, it will still reference the article.
I guess,
So we can go to pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement and maybe not go specific articles.
and that is a possibility, and I'm gonna suggest something. I'm not saying that this is something that we're gonna TA, but
No, no,
you
that's-
could put something at the end that sort of reads, nothing in this article is, should be perceived as limiting the rights under this collective bargaining agreement.
Right, and I think,
And just so we're clear, I don't think it's necessary, okay? Because I think that the first, except as otherwise specifically provide, the first article addresses your concerns, I really do. But if that's something that if it's an extra layer of what you perceive as protection, then that could be added. I'm not saying it will.
well, and we bring it up is because it's, again, this is one of those articles that has issues have been happening, and I think, well,
And if I may, and
Yes.
with all due respect, I don't think that it's because of the clarity of it. I think it's because there's always gonna be that tension between the union and the chief.
Well, no,
There's always gonna be
and I
that. So there's
understand.
always gonna be grievances, is what I'm saying. Like, we can look, we can rewrite this thing and we're still gonna have two sets of eyes looking at it with your own point of view. And that's why these grievances come up. So I highly doubt that it's the clarity, in my opinion.
Well,
I don't think it's the clarity that
the other
causes
part about it
grievances.
is that when we are in the collective bargaining. Not unilateral decision from one side. That's clear that it's a basically bargaining or not bargaining in good faith. Where unilaterally decisions are being made while you're at the table that affects conditions of employment, right?
Mhm,
And I think that happened last time and I don't know what ended up happening with it, and there was policy being written, there was contradictory to some of the things that were already done, but it should have been bargained at the table, right? So
Mhm.
when those issues, when we got together and met, we're like, okay, well, what's the issue with this? Well, okay, well, maybe we should reference that you take care of it here. So that way the city or the fire chief reads this article and says, okay, yeah, no, then if we want to amend it, then we go to the collective bargaining table, right? Where it should be addressed if we're bargaining in good faith. So we're not trying to change anything. Now, if the other articles, if the city is in agreement or proposes something and we're in agreement, then yeah, it'll kind of amend kind of what the management, the rights of management are. But at the end of the day, if nothing is changed, that article is still gonna stay there. And unless it's completely removed from the CBA, saying that we'll follow it doesn't do anything to the management rights as far as the way it's worded. It's not adding or taking away or trying to limit. It's just trying to, on this issue, just, be wary that this article specifically references it.
And and on the flip side of that, and I don't mean to bring up another article, and we will have a proposal on it, but maintenance of standards 32, I mean. We did propose in the last bargaining session, this shall not be, I guess. Construed as limiting the rights of management under Article 6, and that was, that was not approved by the union. So I think that we're in a similar boat.
Right.
I'm analogizing it to that because we're in a similar boat. But we hear what you're saying. You're saying that it's not clear. Our position right now, just hearing your proposal is that it is. But if you can come up, if there's an example of something that has recently happened where you could show us why this is unclear, if there's anything, just we're willing to listen to it.
The overtime policy,
Okay.
promoting, right?
I guess my question is, has the chief created overtime policy without the union president?
Yes.
Yes, well, not the chief, maybe lower, mid administration. Promoting, if the city comes to the point where, well, we don't have to follow certain promoting sections of the contract, right?
Which ones?
Which is one that Cesar Garza mentioned at one point, but we don't have to follow that, right? And clearly state law says he does have to
He
follow.
wanted to follow 143.
When it came to the
Promoting.
questions, right, questions or how we.
No test question could have the
More than one
answer, so that no all of the above, and it could only have three. There was some things that we put into our contract.
Right, and whether it's stated or not, then no, we're not gonna follow it. Well, it's clear that the bargaining agreement overrides that. So we're just trying to clean up, we're like, no, if it's mentioned here and it's been agreed upon, then it does, Chapter 174 clearly tells you it will override local ordinance, it will override even the local civil service rules if referenced, right, and addressed. So that's why we're like, okay, how do we clean some of this language up? To try to maybe clear up some of this. And with that being said, like Mr. Niente said, okay, well, there's other articles. All right, well, we can put pursuant to collective bargaining agreement, but those other articles, when it comes to promoting, if there's another process that we think would work better and the city and the association agree, then it would override that. And it would force our local civil service to acknowledge, yes, your way of doing it has been overridden by the collective bargaining agreement as per chapter 174, right? Or am I wrong?
No. I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around that because again, I'm not familiar with your promotional process or
Right,
that
right.
stuff. And
And that's
I
kind
haven't
of.
seen and I haven't seen the policy and I haven't been able to see an opportunity to see if it contradicts what your rights are under this contract.
I do have a question. What is it in the promotional that it does not sit well with the union? If you think you.
There's issues that back when I would look at it, I don't know, you got maybe the union board can address it. He asked for specifics, so I mentioned that we know something that has come up often was where Cesar would mention no, we can have these questions because local civil service rules or civil service rules say so. Like, well, wait a minute, no, chapter 174 clearly states that if the collective bargaining agreement has pretty much preempted that section of your rules, then that's it. This is the way you follow it. So, as far as with the actual promoting procedure or what has been changed or what has been, you would, maybe one of the local, I'm sorry, the locals, executive board members can address that. But it's just that when you mention specifics, I remember that as being an issue where we were told, no, that's not, how we're going to follow it because our local rules say this.
And was it grieved? Just out of curiosity?
No, I think, they ended up going and changing it if I'm not mistaken, or I think they gave it the points, but I don't remember.
So it was remedied. And was there a reasoning behind the remedy? Did they,
I don't recall. You asked specifics in promoting.
No,
That's when they came to
completely
mind really quick,
Yeah.
so.
And these are just questions that I have because like I said, I'm not familiar with your operations as much as you guys are. So I'm gonna ask questions because I want to know why these changes are being proposed. That's all.
And these, again, we don't feel these are changes. We feel they're just saying they're clearing up. Well, no, when it comes to overtime, you don't have the absolute right. There's an article already. And again, whether that article is amended or not, or it stays the same. And the example is Article 17. It's been already TA'd. So here, no, you don't have the absolute right. You do have to look at Article 17. It's right there. So we were just pointing to that. Okay, look, under this clause, letter A, you have to look at parts of the contract. You just can't go at it alone.
And I guess from my understanding, is it the union wants more input on any policies that the chief is wanting to, no, if you're wanting to clarify, you want it to limit, what is it that the intention is?
Anywhere we've already clarified, like overtime policy,
Mhm.
it's already in there. But when you read this standalone,
Mhm.
if we feel that sometimes, policies are added that, were addressed in the contract.
And I understand that. And I guess maybe there's a feeling that because of this new overtime provision where there is now a duty on the chief to consult with the union president. And the language here, there's a contradiction. You see a contradiction.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing?
And just to avoid it, right? So, example, and a 14-day written notice shall be given with reasoning, right? I think the association was contacted by a couple of individuals like, hey, I didn't know till this happened where, I have my child, they're moving me over here. I had an understanding with the chief or with administration. This just happened. There's issues on childcare and we brought it up in the past, but
In 2014, we brought this up.
Mhm.
And at that time, fire chief was sitting at the table and he agreed to do basically 7-day notice or 14-day notice. I don't remember, but it wasn't the Friday of, they just take effect on Sunday. And especially when you're moving people from 8 to 5 that have certain arrangements with childcare and they're able to go pick up the kid from daycare every day at 5:30, 6 o'clock. And that totally changes when you're working 24-hour shift. Especially when you go from a Friday that the notice comes out and this takes effect Sunday morning. There's no room for adjustment.
So and thank you for bringing my attention to letter N. And I hear that is definitely a legitimate concern that you have. However, you adding this language
For a reason,
is letter N. You're essentially, this is telling the chief what to do.
it's just saying.
I mean, still
give
stay away, but
a
if you
reason
know
why,
how you're
why.
Let us know why you're doing it. Okay. So.
not saying you
this-
can't do it,
It's
but
just-
let us know why.
And then again, but under this there should be a separate article on that because this article deals with rights of management. And the way this reads is now this is a directive from the union that chief, you must give a reason, you must do that. This automatically interferes with his management rights.
I don't. He can move an individual for any reason. This doesn't limit him not moving. It's just clarification on why.
But now you're imposing, and now the way I
extra
read this,
duty.
it's imposing a duty when this article is supposed to be his management right. Now, again, with the overtime, right? An article was written to address the overtime. It wasn't placed in here in management rights. So I don't think that this provision is the correct avenue for getting that change.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
And I understand.
Yeah.
We see that.
Would that be a reasonable change? That
Well-
the city would consider in any other article, or is that just?
Like is notice to begin that, is
Yeah.
notice. I mean,
And it's fine if you don't have the
Possible
answer
to-
right now, but just as a follow-up to that.
I don't have an answer to that, but I guess is there a practice within the department where people are moved without any reasoning whatsoever, not a meeting, nothing?
no one is told why, you know,
We just
maybe
had
a select few are told. Hey, do you wanna move here? So,
But-
Hey, we have this
Those
opening.
were as a result of all the vacancies you had back in December and all those
Because-
retirements and-
Not necessarily because those moves are not only to fill those positions, but you have people being moved from one district, one station to another, one
Or
shift to
in,
another.
to put it in better perspective, from one side of the city to the other side of the city.
Would the chief have that ability to move the most skilled person in a certain position to another one they were maybe vacant?
Yes, but if I'm responding to station 13. And. Tomorrow you ask me, oh, you're reporting now to station 14, which is 17, 18 miles away. So I have to make certain arrangements, address certain things. It's now gonna take an extra 45 minutes of travel. So. In the past, the argument was always like, well, you're gonna get moved, but it's from here to that station. Now the city is growing, and so, for example, the two outer limit stations. Being moved from station 13 to station 14. Is going to logistically for an individual, bring up a lot of issues. I used to drop off my kid, I can't now because I have to leave 45 minutes earlier.
But that's no different than anybody assigned to a work area that if Pinto Valle, how do the people at Pinto Valle do it? That's way out on my.
You can't move it. No.
We should give a notice, so that we can plan appropriately.
Arrange-
That's all.
Make
But there's the list done every Thursday or what?
No, they're
Friday,
put out
usually
Friday.
put out Friday
Not
after
Thursdays?
5. No,
No.
usually put out Friday after 5, and they usually take effect before the Monday, and they do that for a reason.
Which is,
What are the reasons?
So they don't get 100 phone calls of why am I getting moved?
Or,
you wanna know
or
what's
why are
true.
you moving
No,
my?
no,
my
that's fine,
favorite
that's
guy,
fine.
right?
I mean, that's the truth.
We had an agreement that this guy would stay here, why are you moving my guy? And so. Again, we're not trying to limit the city administration in any aspect other than pointing out, hey. There are some articles that do touch on this. As long as everyone's in agreement that we're gonna follow those or point to those. And on here, just a notice with the reasoning of the move, right? Perfect example, Tony Alanis, we're moving you because. Congratulations, got promoted to captain and there's a vacancy here. And in 2 weeks, I need you to report over there. Tony is like, okay, good that you tell me. Now I need to go get all my stuff, go get my new locker, make arrangements, whether I'm changing plans, and it's just give the proper notice to say. I'm switching you back and forth and maybe your travel distance is going to increase, maybe you have to make arrangement at home, whatever it may be. Shift work, I'm changing your shift. Go ahead and take care of your affairs and then you can move.
Or even 8
is it
to
a
5,
complaint
an 8
that
to 5
somebody
schedule.
just doesn't like the location that they're being assigned?
No.
to?
No.
Well,
It's
it's
just the notice of not being given to them with proper time.
One is the notice and the other one is, I was told this. I was told this Thursday and on Friday I didn't go there. All of a sudden I went to the other side of town. What happened?
A lot of times it's viewed as a punishment. A lot of times it's viewed as a punishment, and if you give a gentleman a reason or a lady a reason and say, we're moving you because of this. It alleviates some of the anxiety, it alleviates some of the question, did I do something wrong? Did I not do something wrong? What happened in this situation? Like, no, we moved you because you're the most skilled person taking over this position because it requires the skill set that you have. Not just an arbitrary move because for no reason at all, we just moved you. And this is, you brought something up, just real quick, you brought something up earlier about a vacancy, somebody retires out of here. And he's next on the list to get promoted, so you would think, well, he goes there. But there might be 5 or 6 moves all over the place, and he goes nowhere near there. He goes way over here, and 5 or 6 other people get moved for that one position where the vacancy was. Where it seems real simple, you know, when you made it, when you made the comment, it sounds real simple, like, oh, well,
That's what I'm asking.
40 people retired, 40 people got promoted. I'm sure the next guy on the list filled the position of that. And I know No, 40 guys retired and 140 moves happened.
So help me understand, so typically when there is a roster change, it's usually as a result of a big group of people retiring or a new class.
It could be for whatever.
No, we don't have any academies coming in.
And you just never know. And over the years, it's been used by a lot of people to understand and feel that it's been used to target individuals, it's been used to punish individuals. And
It just seems like a lot of work to try to punish somebody, to move so many people around, and it impacts a lot of
Yes.
people.
when you're
Yeah.
you're assuming that they're all 140 moves, sometimes it's 5 moves.
But even look, but even with a negative connotation to it, you know what, Albert, I'm going to move you because you and Randall Manning have been getting into this agreement, so to diffuse the situation, we're moving you because you have less rank. And he's a senior man,
Or I'm
okay?
both of them.
Okay,
Or
right. Yeah, or we're moving both of you. It's not a punishment, but we can't have you there because it's going to spill over and we're trying to avoid problems.
it's fine.
And everyone would be fine, got it.
So with this, no, just for my own curiosity. Would this preclude any moves that are quickly made because there's vacancies or someone's absent or something? Because I would imagine the chief, if he gets a list and people don't show up and he has to move people.
Oh, no, that doesn't, no, this is,
That's every day. The
Yeah.
operations of it. when
The daily
somebody's
operations
absent, Is not curtailed in a paper move, where it's actually moving from unofficial station, unofficial roster.
Okay.
and I'll give you the example. So once you get to the almost supervisor level, pretty much, or at least driver, once you get to the driver level. Unless you're going to be acting captain somewhere, and I guess the captain would be the best example to give. I'm stationed to station 12. I get to station 12 and I'm not getting moved, right? I'm not a backup backup district chief, sorry. I'm a captain at that station.
That's your firehouse.
So I'm there. I don't take extra bags. I'm saying I have my extra change of clothes in case we get fires at my station, because I know. But a firefighter who's a paramedic might get moved. So they'll carry extra supplies or things like that, because I probably will get moved if there's a need for personnel. But say I'm a captain or a district chief, and I show up one day and it's just like at 5 PM. Hey, tomorrow you're reporting over there. Hey, wait a minute. I already had plans. I had certain things. I need to move all my gear. I need to go get a new locker. I don't know who's over there. Who am I supposed to get piece of the station? I'm in charge of all this. This is just more, if I had notice, okay, now let me prepare to make the move, right? It's nothing other than proper notice for the individual to make arrangements. When you get with a younger fireman, they have children, whether they're taking them to school, daycare, anything like that, it's just making a adjustment to their lives. Proper notice to go ahead and be able to do that. That's all. It's not limiting the chief or administration from moving anyone. They can still move whoever they want. That's it's under the rights of management. But give us notice and just what's the reason?
Can a collective bargaining member, to make arrangements, use any leaves, or if they leave to work with their families?
Well, I'm sure they could actually leave if the slots are available. If you go on sick leave, I guess you can go on sick leave, but.
What was the past practice on roster changes?
It's
Is it once a
been,
year, every 6 months?
it's up to whenever administration.
Previous
decides.
administrations just did the same thing.
Yeah, that's why this has been brought up in multiple contracts, because this is an ongoing issue.
In fact, in previous contracts, what they used to do was the chief could assign you from one shift to another. You'd have to leave at midnight and following 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Have to show back up because now you're on that shift. Through the contract negotiations, that practice had to be stopped, well, it has been stopped. And now you.
I think it's a 24-hour rest period at least.
Where you need to, if you're not out for 24 hours, you don't report until you follow the shift. But
And that's best case scenario, like if you're getting moved to on the same shift to another station, right? But there's other circumstances where guys get moved to a completely other shift. So I'm picking up my kids Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Now it messes up my schedule. Or you're getting moved 8 to 5, where I'm gonna have to come to work every single day and not have those extra 2 days off.
And
Right.
no one is saying, don't move them. All it is, can you just give them some notice? I'm going to move you in 2 weeks, take care of your affairs. Which you would think would be just the legitimate thing to do. Hey, I know it's my right. This is your job. You need to take care of your job.
But this
But
isn't
if-
no way telling the chief or administration, you can't put me on A or B
No.
shift.
No, it's just saying, give me notice that I'm gonna get moved.
You mean 14-day notice,
I'm not saying you can't put me at station 8
No.
because I don't like Del Mar, it's too much
No.
traffic. I mean, that's not.
Or the big one, I'm gonna move from shift 4 to 8 to 5, or the other way around. Well, I've set up certain things in my life a certain way, just give me some notice so that I can basically adjust, and that's it, no problem moving, right? It's just if I have notice so that I can make those arrangements, that's all.
I understand that. My only concern is adding this duty in the management rights section. I
Oh,
think, I
and
think,
putting it somewhere else.
I think it's counterproductive to what the spirit of the article is.
Okay. And
And I'm not
Is
saying
there
that,
another place you would like to put it? I mean, is there another place that you would prefer? If-
or consider,
I
or if you wanna look at it
am
and bring it back.
I am unfamiliar, and again, I can't say that, well, I won't say that I'm completely in agreement. This would be something that we would talk about as a team,
And we understand.
but, I want to make, I just, I wouldn't know where to put it. I'm not familiar with the totality of this contract.
No, and that's fine. We're just giving you what the issues that were discussed. How we thought they could be remedied and how pretty much it wasn't taken away already, any of the chief's rights or city's rights. And even on the other articles, wording, I agree with you, wording every specific article might be limiting, but we wanted to put in there just so kind of just for the discussion purpose of referencing. It's not only one article, it could be multiple articles. And so
Why won't you put the sentence of wherever this subject applies within the contract, and it would cover everything?
say that again.
Pursuant to a collective bargaining agreement.
That's what, yeah,
That's
that's kind of.
Instead of
what
putting it, instead of having a name.
Oh, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. We did that so that we could basically discuss the specifics of it, but we have no issue going to.
That's the.
Yeah.
Right,
So we're saying it's fine to put that, it's fine, but we
Or
want to
just
demonstrate.
in the very top, saying 1 through 7.
And that's,
Put in every single one of them.
and we have no issue with that, that is fine, we just wanted to basically demonstrate in the first articles that each one of these
I already mentioned.
will basically touch
Articles.
this article that are maybe this
We just wanted to show you
one.
how many articles that letter B touches, so many articles. But yes,
Because-
you're right, we could do like what says letter D, pursuant to collective bargaining agreement.
So put it on the very top. Items 1 through, or A through
Q.
Q.
Yeah, and that's, yeah, and we're fine, we did it in this manner because
I still.
for the presentation of the
The
article.
impact that has on the rest of the contract.
Oh, I'm gonna put something out.
Yeah, because I guess, I guess even without, and just, this is my interpretation. I'm not gonna say that I am. It's the same as an arbitrator or whatever, but after reading all of this. In preparation for today. I guess I would summarize this as long as the chief isn't prohibited by any article within this contract to do something. He can do it, as long as it falls within A through Q. That's how I read it. Now, you're saying that so I guess my question is, are you saying that's what this means? You just want clarification?
That's what we're getting at, yes, clarification,
Okay.
and the only addition though is the notice,
And the only addition would be the notice,
Yeah.
okay, okay, well,
that's what it is.
any
And then-
questions or any other comments about this or?
Found that one over then on 6.5,
Okay,
There is
okay,
also
thank
a-
you. Oh, okay, yes,
and it's basically again, what kind of touching on what you mentioned.
that's
It's a proposal.
I understand that it's. It's 6.5, 6.5.
That's page,
God,
that's page chapter.
that's what you get for having an Article 32, boys.
The Supreme Court.
Yeah, there's a reason why there's a lot of challenges. It's super broad too. Okay. That's always reared its ugly head, guys. All right,
Yeah.
So what is, please tell me why you propose this to 6.5, please.
In the spirit of the same thing, as far as where these articles, 6.5, again, gives a perception of. Anything not covered in language in Article 32, right, and. Perfect example is the hearing, the grievance that was filed a year and a half ago, it took like a year to get the decision. And we're saying like, well, there is such thing as a past practice, there is such thing as privileges and what 32, the privileges and conditions of employment that are in effect at the time that will take basically precedence sometime for that, the life of that contract. So that's been recognized. There's been grievances on it. There's been awards handed out on it. And so it's just clarifying that, yes, the areas are, other than anything written in the contract or any other basically maintenance standard that was in effect at the signing of the contract, the city and the chief do have the right. Right. It's not only the black letter, and I think, or the black letter of the contract. I think, the last negotiations I saw, or I was here when, what was her name?
Roxy.
Roxy had mentioned, no, it's only what 143 says. Like, well, that's funny because 174 governs this document, not 143. 143 touches on it,
Mhm.
or this can override 143, but 143 doesn't govern maintenance standards. So,
So if, I'm gonna not propose anything, but would it be possible, based on mutual agreement by the chief negotiators, to discuss 32, because
Yeah.
we are mentioning that, would that be okay, unless you all aren't ready to
Right
talk
now?
about it, like,
Yep.
just talk about it, just to see, and we can
we had it on
limit,
one of the lists.
we can limit the discussion to how this fits in with management rights.
Sure.
Because I think that would help us kill two birds with one stone.
Does anyone have an issue on?
You have a proposal on it?
I don't have a proposal on it,
We
but
just want to discuss.
I want to discuss 32 as it applies, because I feel like both of these articles complement one another, and
Yes,
depending on your interpretation of how they fit together, it changes the entire meaning.
yes, it does.
So if we can go to 32, please. So, Mr. Gonzalez, I just want to know, since you propose that this not be changed, I'd like to know what the union's interpretation is of Article 32. For the record.
For the record is hours, wages, privileges, and conditions of employment in effect at the time of the execution is anything in effect. It doesn't say in writing, doesn't say in writing in this document.
It says, but for the life of this agreement, so it references
For
the
the life of
agreement.
this agreement, the association and the city shall mutually agree that any additional privilege may be granted or removed at the discretion of the fire chief. On top of what is in effect at the signing of the agreement. Furthermore, which is why we mentioned the unilateral enactment of one-sided of what is bargaining and, or not bargaining in good faith. One side making a unilateral decision that addresses hours, wages, and privileges and conditions of employment and forcing through policy at the time when the contract is being negotiated. That has been established as not negotiating in good faith, right?
How so?
Trying to enforce a change while the issue should be discussed at the table. No, I'm the fire chief, or I'm administration, I'm the city, I'm going to try to unilaterally implement something amending conditions of employment. So we take it as one, what's in the what's in exit or what's in play at the signing of the contract stays in for the life of the contract. Anything additional can be added, but or if mutual agreement removes, and we have done that in the past. But it's in play. It doesn't have to be written in the contract. It doesn't have to be spelled out in chapter 143. Is what the argument in the past that I heard. It's basically anything that again, a past practice.
And I think this goes back to what you said earlier. If you try to write down every single thing that's in play during the life of a contract and try to put it in this book, it'll never.
No,
No, you're right.
that's why
So-
we should remove privileges altogether.
So, okay, so here's, if we were to, let's just say, yeah, so this is what. Yeah, so this, when I read this, it seems as though that this maintenance of standards really benefits your union, and here's the reason why. Just because you have certain rights here, this Article 32 allows for the city through the chief to grant you more privileges than is what is based in this contract. So think of it this way, the Constitution of the United States, right? The Second Amendment.
Mhm.
The Supreme Court has given a baseline as to what the right to bear arms means, right?
Right.
Like, these are your rights. This is our interpretation of what rights you have under the Second Amendment.
Yes.
The state of Texas did what? You know what? We're gonna add. We're gonna give you more than what the Supreme Court and the Constitution thinks because we interpret it a little differently.
Right.
The Supreme Court says the states can do this. We're saying, no, you have a constitutional right to carry a weapon openly. So states can create laws that give you more protections and more freedoms and more privileges than what the Constitution would allow.
Mhm.
So this is basically what's happening here. This article is saying that the chief, even though this is the baseline of your contractual rights, can give you more. And that it's not just, is that clear with everyone?
Sure.
Okay, so you're saying that this has, but where does it say about past practice?
Well, it doesn't matter. I give you as an example of
Okay.
what the past practice, in this
benefit.
contract, how do you establish that at the signing of the contract, this is the privilege or condition of employment or hours that were being exercised? Well, here's our history of how and when it was done. That past practice shows you leading up to this point. In other words, I couldn't claim a privilege if there was never any exercise of it.
So are you saying that the chief can never roll back that right if it's been granted in the past?
No, we're not saying that that's the condition.
Because
We never said that he could not roll back. If anything, it says they should mutually agree that any additional or removes at the discretion of the parties, right?
Mhm.
Like, so once you get past the signing and anything that's in place, the chief can approve, but then he can also remove, right?
Mhm.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
But if it's something that's been taking place for 10 years, a chief can't just come in and say, I just think we're gonna do away with that.
Well, that's not how this reads.
Okay, so how do you?
I would say that the new chief, this hypothetical new chief coming in can roll it back. It just cannot roll it back past what is contractually obligated.
Well,
That,
well, not contractually obligated, whatever was in place. So let's just say.
No, I see what his stance is.
Yeah. Like if you chief came in and said, we're gonna do casual Fridays. Privilege, great.
yes,
It was added, no problem. If he wants to take casual Fridays away, it was added during the life of the contract, we accepted it.
But,
great.
and hold on though. It also, it's not this, all privileges are allowed. Hours and wages, privileges, hours, wages, privileges, and conditions of employment. I don't know if casual Fridays would meet the condition of employment.
yeah, of course it is.
You're like,
Condition of
I book
employment-
you.
It is, like, a condition of my employment is to wear a suit to court. I can't go like this to court. So it would be a condition of my employment,
So that's not worded.
not,
Is it worded under the city's policy?
no, it is not.
Okay, so then if one day you're like, you know what, I don't have nothing worded here. You've allowed a casual Friday, then you would argue, I go on Friday, even though I have court on Friday.
Well, I would argue that if a new city attorney were to come in and they're my new boss and they did away with casual Friday, I wouldn't say, well, the last person did it for 10 years. That wouldn't go well for me.
And I don't think I would
You should have
argue.
a contract.
Well, I don't get to have a contract. I'm not.
No, I don't think, I don't think I would argue that either, right?
Okay.
And that's why, to me, I don't think casual Fridays would meet the level of a condition of employment. right?
And just, yeah, just for the sake of.
So-
for the sake of
so what I'm saying-
negotiating, bargaining, yeah.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to say though is that it's not as broad as, I guess, if that's what you're saying is, it's hours and wages, which most of it's spelled out here. Privileges and conditions of employment are the only ones that are there. And privileges, there's not that many to begin with, right? So it's not like the fire chief comes in and just allows us 100 different privileges. There's not that many privileges to begin with.
Where an arbitrator has already,
But it is conditions of
because of it.
employment, right? Conditions of employment. How can this leave be used? Why can it be used this way? Well, there's a long practice of doing it this way. And so that was in play. And I think the opinion was spot on when it was like, and if you want to change it, guess what? Here's your advocate to change it, right? And we're in agreement with that. If we want to change it, and I think the city proposed that even a change like in political activities,
Mhm.
which, and great, recognizing that condition of unemployment and certain things are done, so we want to maybe scale that back. The avenue to do it is here, right?
Okay.
I mean, I would think so.
No,
And from what I've read, that's where it is. So I know you're saying, well, I think it means this, but it hasn't been used in that manner.
Well, I wanted to hear from Tony. I know you were gonna say something.
I think it's just referencing back to where this is we have already kind of gotten into it with the arbitration that we had about a year ago. I think the arbitrator, sided with the union because of past practice, and it's something that we're arguing here that it's something that's been done for 10 years. It's not something that the chief can automatically just, change just because, right? So I think that's.
And again, if it's a privilege or condition of employment, if it's, and again, and we'll agree to disagree.
No, that's, yeah.
I don't think casual Friday
No.
hits that mark, but.
This is just for sake of argument, for sake of.
Or Taco Tuesday, right? I don't think they would hit.
Every day is Taco Tuesday, sir. Every day is Taco Tuesday. No, but again, but I think that in that particular arbitration, yes, there was a past practice, but it wasn't just a past practice that didn't fall within a protected right within this contract. It had to do with association business leave as well. So I think that's the difference here. So obviously, if it touches.
I guess let me ask, what condition of employment? Or is the city looking at that is not kind of mentioned in the contract and just an extension of wording from the contract?
Okay, so.
Which one is it that the association or firefighters are doing that kind of doesn't meet the criteria we're talking about?
Okay, so I can only speak on my limited experience in working with you fine gentlemen. But there was a situation about an amount of time that you had to spend before you had to pay back something to use an exchange.
Right.
Remember, I believe the policy was 120 days for you to, and please help me with the language, to pay.
For you to pay back.
For you to pay back. You couldn't just kick the can of payback for years and years and years. It was 120 days. And I think the.
So it's 120 days and then you give notice.
And then you give notice and then it extends it for an indefinite period of time, correct?
It would
Oh,
extend.
no, it doesn't. So
But it could,
it could if supervisors allowed it,
yes, and.
if you had reason, right?
Both parties agree.
Right, both
Yes.
parties had to agree,
Yes.
and then your supervisor had to sign off on it. So it
Okay.
just wasn't like, hey, Joaquin, I'm just never gonna pay you back.
No, but because there was a lack of a policy, was there the potentiality for me to say, hey, David, we're just gonna agree indefinitely and you're okay with me not paying it back, right? And let's just say we're good buddies and you say, yeah, that's fine.
You would
That
have
could
to
happen.
have,
And let's say
Parties-
it fell through the cracks with the supervisors.
right, so again, so we go back to, you would have to have the parties agree, and then you would have to have the supervisor to sign off on it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And let's just say the perfect storm happened. You have my hypothetical and a supervisor that's just signing off.
Right.
Could there be a situation where that payback is kicked indefinitely? Is it possible? I'm not saying if it, practically speaking.
It is possible
Mhm.
if two individuals allowed it, the supervisor allowed it, the supervisors at the station overlooking what I call hub station, the station here overlooking the stations, it monitors. Allowed it and bypass it. There's been occasions where like, hey, wait a minute, this guy hasn't paid back, supervisor calls. It's like, you need to start paying this guy back. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So those situations have also, I understand what triggers an issue is the one that. The outrageous one, right?
Yeah.
But there were a lot of situations where the hub stations did catch that. Like, hey, weren't you looking at this? Like, well, no, they amended it twice. Well, they haven't paid back. Okay. Hey, you need to schedule something, you need to schedule something now. Because then now, I think you would fall under chapter 143 of where you can be disciplined, right? And I don't have the list of reasons why, but you do have certain duties to the city, right? So you could trigger those aspects. So I agree that the potential is there. I disagree with though that there's no checks on it.
No,
There's multiple checks on it and all at every level would have to basically just.
Why don't we
Not paying attention.
move on? There's the situation.
Okay, no,
Oh, you were bringing up maintenance standard.
yeah, I'll bring it up maintenance of standards because.
I think you have to leave at 2:30 right now.
But,
We're not getting-
no, yeah, I understand. Okay, all right, I guess we'll move on and we have your proposal for, Article 16. Article 16?
Six.
Article 6, yeah, Article 6, so we'll move on to,
Do
Article,
you have to leave at 2:30? You want to basically set up the next meeting and discuss what's on the table for next meeting or?
Sure,
I don't know.
great.
we can continue with, your proposals. If we finish those, then you'll get into the city's proposals. Is that-
You have any?
No, you have to leave at 2:30. Are we stopping at 2:30?
No. You can continue to go. I need to leave, but I want to make sure that we continue
Okay.
on the next one, since like we're not getting anyone, so.
Oh, no, this was 6, you jumped to 30.
Yeah, I jumped to 32 because of the way.
He just asked for, I guess, our interpretation of 32.
Right, not
Not, we're not really,
discussing.
I don't think-
The entire discussion was
because
about.
we don't know your proposal on 32, so
Yes.
really there's no
No,
actual substance of conversation.
I understand, but I just feel like they're so interconnected. It was just a natural segue into that, but you are correct in that, Mr. Chapa, and we will have a proposal for you on that, okay? But I guess I think we're good with 6. We've seen what your position is on management rights. So we'll move on, and if we have a counter, we will propose that counter, okay? So I guess we'll go to
Or making notes on it.
number.
But, and my question is though, I know you have to leave at 2:30, and I know we agreed of who was here or not, or in the forum, but is it okay?
Yeah, y'all can keep going.
Well, I mean, are we gonna discuss, or you allowed, if
No, we can,
anything to TA or not?
We can-
What's 8?
which one, number 8?
Duties.
Yeah, so there's not a lot on duties.
Yeah, let's look at number 8 then. Thank you.
We discussed forums. 6, okay, right, that's it. So on 8, we made a note here to basically definition of the terms, basically we're going back to the duties, what's included when it comes to lawful orders. But I think you guys mentioning what TML, I think that might be able to clear this up, right? We just made a note of it.
It was just out right now.
Yeah, so, but
maybe
that's-
up there, so. for the
Yeah.
community.
Well, just to, on duties, number 1, it was just that, one was just the fact that we wanted to ask for that, that's a clarification. On 2, striking that line out, because 2 basically says, if I pay you time and a half to do it, you're basically waiving the fact that you shouldn't be doing this to begin with. Right? This is any special details not corresponding to our duties should be paid at time and a half. So if the firefighter said, you know what, I get it, I'm not gonna be covered, because now we have a true definition of what a lawful order is and what my duties are and what I should be doing in order for workers' comp and all my benefits to trigger. But for time and a half, I waive all that, and I will do something that's not my duty. So that's why we're asking to strike that. Back here?
Yep.
And 3, the 6 months, it's a 60 shifts. It was, I think, part of prior discussion. And the last one also is the same thing, prior discussion about what was presented as to include the duties, orders, and directives, kind of all expanding on that, that if you are ordered, there's a lawful order. Then you would be, basically, it would coincide as part of the firefighter's duties.
I know that, I have in my notes from last time that we were gonna add paramedic duties or EMT duties. Is that still?
No,
As far as in what, in
I don't know.
Mhm.
I just have my old notes. I'm not sure.
I don't think that was ever part of the
Paramedic
proposal.
duties Or EMT duties.
maybe in the discussion.
In the
I don't
discussion.
remember part of being discussion.
I don't remember that being part of the discussion. I know that EMS is covered there.
Salvage, overhaul work, maintenance. of
Yeah,
and
I
equipment
don't remember that being part of the discussion.
Tire changes and vehicle removal.
Maybe it was the days I wasn't here.
Yeah, that's what I had in my notes from the last time.
And I think what the reason why we put asterisks and definition of the terms here was if we were able to get to an actual list or criteria so that we could actually modify the language to mirror those things. And that's why we were asking to remove the second clause, because we didn't want our firefighters to be able to opt and say, I'm waiving all those rights. Because if you're gonna give me time and a half to do it, right? So that would fall outside of the contract. If someone else, if the city wants to hire David Gonzalez to do something else on the outside. Has nothing to do with the duties falling under the contract. It's separate from the fire department. That makes sense?
No comments on this one. We're just gonna talk about it as a team and then get back to you if we're gonna TA and stuff like that. Okay.
We get a quick card. I need to go with that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
What time are we gonna be going to today?
What were you thinking?
I thought we were gonna stop at 2:30. That's when I was.
I mean, sounds good to me.
Well, it's just. Any other takers?
You want?
But if.
Yeah, because we weren't ready and we said, okay, let's.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, no, I thought that's why I'm,
Going, I
Go back
know,
forward.
I told you.
I'm only asking because I thought that's what we were doing.
Can we pause, if you all want to continue, that's fine, can we pause maybe for next meeting, like set the dates and.
Yeah, that's what I was basically, I was thinking 30,
Yeah.
20-30 minutes to do
Let's do
that
that.
because I knew you said you need to leave.
All right, so we're doing that, are we doing that live, the schedule? Okay. All right, awesome. So, what's your all's availability?
When?
So it's every 2 weeks, so we do something every.
Do we have to do 2 weeks?
That's the minimum.
It's the minimum, I
Do
mean,
what we,
I don't know. And we're available, let me see. That would be. March 3rd would be next Friday, or we can do March.
We can do March 3rd.
March 3rd. How's your calendar? March 3rd. You're good?
Mhm.
Good. March 3rd, I'm good. March 3rd?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well then I think we can set it for March 3rd at 9 a.m.
Mhm.
and we'll try to go, we'll make a. Try to go all day.
You wanna make a list of articles to?
Yeah, we'll have a list of articles. Can I provide you those on Monday?
Yeah, that's fine.
Because we have some time. I already have a proposal list. I just want to finalize it with my team first.
That's fine. Just so that we can have some time to.
And then we'll continue on with, yeah, I'll make sure that you have plenty of time to look them over and to discuss them so in preparation for the meeting.
Okay.
Let's see.
So the March 3rd night will be going all day?
The other day.
You're gonna email them, send on Monday, right?
Yeah, I'll email to you on Monday or Tuesday. I'll have the proposals. I won't have the language, but I'll tell you which articles we're gonna be ready for, okay?
Before we're gonna bring back 6.
And we'll also have the counters on the ones that you proposed today.
Well, on 4, we're gonna bring back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. If you guys wanna work on it, we're gonna.
So are we good for now? I guess we'll take a break. You need to do the rest of it. Okay. We'll take a 10-minute break. It's 2:13 PM.
Recording in progress.
Okay. All right, we're back on. It's 2:31. And we're discussing another proposal by the union. It's Article 11. Yes, thank you. Just again, I'm sorry.
You want another copy? So on Article 11,
Mhm.
11.2, we put 2 asterisks next to extractors. I don't know if it was the last contract. The discussion basically was extractors would be provided at, was it every station? Every station, the extractors are the washing machines for bucket gear. And so we put an asterisk because we figured it was already there, it was going to be addressed, but it hasn't, so we wanted just to bring it up again, is that. You know, as under health and safety, this is one of the reasons we built out. Certain issues as far as replacement gear, but when we go to a fire, we can wash it. There was a big movement by the department to do like the cancer initiative where. Showering, wipes, how to basically decon equipment. The only issue though is that the extractors had, I guess it had started to be implemented, some were ordered, but then it wasn't carried out. Or finished off. I understand a lot of it is maybe budgetary concerns, but we wanted to bring it back as far. That was a big one as far as the extractors for every station.
Cost of extractors are most of them,
Anywhere.
and how many stations have it?
Working,
Right. Yeah, working or actually installed completely, maybe. Or not even that.
15 works, 5 works, 3, 8 works,
10 sometimes.
and depending on. the soil.
11 when it doesn't vomit all the waters, works sometimes.
Physical machines, I wanna say like.
I know there was one at 4, I don't know if it's operational.
I guess we could get to that list.
Okay, yeah, get us that list and then we can figure that out.
We should have had them at all the stations, and they should be functioned, they should be maintenance, they should be tested, there's a lot more to it than just, we're missing 10.
Oh, no, I
There's a lot
completely
of that.
understand.
It was
Yeah,
a
we brought it up in
5-year period
2018,
now.
and we proposed getting these, and we also mentioned that there was a new NFP standard coming up that we're gonna have to have a second set of bunker gear. So in those conversations, I know the city, the fire chief, but yeah, we'll work on getting one for every station.
I have a question. How often does this happen? Is it after calls, after
It's
their?
supposed to be after the fire.
They're supposed to mandatory wash your gear every 6 months if you don't use it at a fire. But after every fire, you should use it, and that's why now we implemented a second set of gear for everyone.
Like a loaner gear that
And
they're
then
at the
gear
station.
while yours gets washed and dries, so 24-hour period.
The other issue is the way this is supposed to happen, you're supposed to go to a fire. Sometime in the night, you go back to the station, you switch up to your loaner gear that's at the station. You take your dirty gear, you bag it. When does it get taken? It's taken off shift. So we're asking our people to work off shift. Now you're taking your gear off shift across town to wherever the nearest wash machine is. Put it in the wash machine and come back and picking it up, and you're doing all that off shift.
Or an hour later, you drive back, and that's not, no one's putting in to be compensated for that.
No.
The other issue
That's
is
why they need to do it.
where, let's just say the 4 places where they are working. If it just happens I'm on shift that day and everyone's bringing their gear there, I'm the one getting all this dirty gear. Full of soot, putting it in the washer, taking it out, hanging it, getting the other set of gear. So without even going to the fire, I'm basically contaminating myself with all the gear that everyone is bringing. And not only that, if it was a big fire, like we've had several where you've got 20 sets of gear sitting there. It's just sitting there. And so the individuals that are working to help the guys out that are off shift now are basically doing this task all day long. And it's not the issue that they're washing the gear, the fact is that it's contaminated and it's just laying there, or if it's bagged, and these individuals are having to take it that gear and wash it. Where it should be, we go back to our station, we start washing. Shower, make sure you clean, and then get in a uniform and make sure you get another set ready to go.
Quick question, was this ever? Oh,
The extractor, you could find like a $7,000-8,000 extractor, but then only one set of gear fits in it. When you spend $10,000-12,000, you could put
The cruise.
Well,
more sets.
10 pieces.
Yeah.
So your gear, your coat is 2 pieces, there's an inner and an outer, and your pants are 2 pieces, inner and outer. So you wash all your outers together, you wash all your inners together. So
They're
the
washing
larger
different
machines
things.
can take 5 coats and 5 pairs of pants, outers, and then run a load. Then you write 5 pairs of inners, 5 pairs of lowers, or 5 jackets, 5 pants, inners, you wash those. So it takes about 2.5 hours to wash 5 sets of gear. And I say 5, like for 5 individuals.
okay,
But when you buy that smaller, less expensive $7,000 one, like the one at Station 5 on Bartlett. One person's gear at a time, 2-hour cycle to go through it. 10 hours you're washing gear.
Is it a Maytag? I'm just joking.
We just, the time we used to wash our gear in our wash machines at our house. We didn't know any better, that's what we had.
I hear
You
you.
took your gear home, washed it, and sent clothes your family clothes.
So this was just to make a note of that, of like, hey, this was supposed to be done. We wanted, where are we at, and what's the plan moving forward?
Wow. And on 11.3, within 5 business days from receiving the report.
So, in really 11.3 is, again, it is under the health and safety, is reporting, right, performing your duties in the best possible manner in order to avoid accidents, right? So why do we do that? The employees must report any unsafe equipment or conditions to the immediate supervisor, who shall in turn bring it to the attention of the district chief and the fire chief. The fire chief shall take action to correct any unsafe condition. We're asking to include within 5 business days from receiving the report. So it may not be here, spend the money to take care of it, but well noted, this is what's happening, this is the time frame. This is what's gonna happen. What ends up happening a lot of times is, I think, what was it, the last A shift? There wasn't more fire trucks, right? It was just, you're gonna respond in a pickup truck. Yes, we have these issues, but we're not able to fix the issue or replace it in a timely manner. So we wanted to add was like, okay, well then, you need to send some feedback, because what ends up happening is we're at the station and have you heard anything? No, they took the fire truck, they took the ambulance, they said that they'll call us back. So while communication works up the chain of command, we're kind of asking like, well,
Reciprocating them.
yeah, reciprocate the report down so that the person will know how we're moving and or what issues are being addressed.
And just for my clarification, within 5 business days from receiving the report, it says here, take action to correct. Are you asking for a full blown remedy?
So the
to
fire
take in
chief,
place?
that was already there. All we're asking
Okay.
is that, so taking action, I didn't, and if anyone may correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see it as we're completely handling the issue.
Yeah.
I took it as like, you will put the wheels in motion.
Not fix it in 5 days.
Right, it's gonna
Because
be
it-
possible.
'cause if
most
it-
of the issue.
Something might take longer than that, but with the
Okay.
parts order.
Yeah,
Okay, I
Because, like,
understand.
that-
or a lot of times it's like, bring it in later.
Okay.
Well, when later?
Okay.
You know, not, hey, well, it's July and we're gonna wait till October's new budget. Like, well, that's a long time without something.
And this is I don't foresee it getting to the city level as far as city management level, but this would be if, well, you know what? We haven't heard anything. It hasn't been addressed. Call your supervisor. I don't know anything about it. Well, then we can trigger a grievance, right? File the paperwork to basically force a response then. Because right now it's just unlimited, like,
What is the current procedures right now when there is a deficiency or an item that needs to be repaired or the safety condition? What is the
Uh,
current procedures?
as far as units,
Yes.
we report and
Is there?
whenever you
is
hear
there
back,
like a
you-
daily checklist that you give it to your captain, your
There is.
deputies, and
There-
you bring it
there-
into administration, or help me understand that?
there is a daily checklist, but that checklist, I tell everywhere I go work, I tell the guys at my station. In the military, there's a checklist as far as, if this and this and this are wrong, you stop that unit and you stop it dead in its tracks. We no longer move it. A lot of times here it's like, well, go over there and get this, go get some oil and put it in there. Or, and the perfect example is I was talking with my guys at the station now where I'm at, a lot of newer individuals that got promoted. One, you'll be told, well, can you take care of it? Like, well, what is it I should be taking care of? And the perfect example is, okay, you know what? I think I can replace the fan belt on the engine. Pick it up, replace it. It's a holiday of Thanksgiving, it's Thursday, we're not gonna see anyone till Monday. Okay, let me replace it. I've been given the direction, and we touch on what we discussed earlier. One of my guys is a mechanic, he can replace. It. Starts to put in the part, turns on the engine, takes off a finger. What are you doing? You're not a mechanic. Well, no, I was told if I could do it, right? And the reason that's having to be done is because the turnaround time, sometimes it takes days and weeks to even know what's even gonna happen. If we have a policy in writing, I haven't really seen it. I don't know if any of the other supervisors have seen it, but there's really just, we'll get to it when we get to it, kind of
There's currently no mechanism, no threshold met by a certain unit saying. This is unsafe, I'm no longer gonna activate this unit. I'm sorry, go ahead and take up the chain of command. I don't feel safe because now it's a life safety for somebody else. Right now you report it. Okay, if we have another unit, we'll take our service with that one. If we don't have another unit, keep on using it until.
run it as it is, yeah.
Yeah.
So our,
The only thing that we truly take care of that day is tires.
And brakes, tires and brakes are the two that they'll jump on. So we're running into a major issue with an aging fleet, our entire fleet. We're just talking about our units. We have an aging fleet. We knew this was an issue that's been coming for a long time. So with an aging fleet, our biggest problem that we run into is nowadays. Our trucks, we have a couple problems. Our trucks are either so old that they can't buy parts for them. What I mean by that is industry standard, 10 years a fire truck's supposed to be replaced. It can be used as a reserve for an additional 5. That's the standard, industry standard, 10 and 5.
For a truck, for a fire truck, 10 years?
We're not talking about an aerial truck, we're talking about a fire truck. Well, the problem lies in our trucks are all so old that when we take a truck out of service at 15 years and say now it's gonna be reserved, not at 10. We take that at 15 years, it's now a reserve and it's being used every day. It's not used as a, hey, once every month, that truck might get used once or twice. It's taken out of a frontline pumper at a station and being moved into a reserve position where it's used every single day at another station. So it's still a frontline pumper. But now it's 20 years old.
Okay.
It's so old that when the parts break on it, they can't get parts. That manufacturer is no longer in business. They cannot buy parts for it. So now they're having to engineer parts, it's like what I said.
Yeah, and how much, if you know, how much of your fleet is aging? You said.
90%.
It's a large percentage.
When did the?
I don't think we would have.
15 years old.
Yeah.
Oh, so you know that, okay.
And so the issue is, and they meant.
But good amount.
So tires and brakes are automatically, they will be handled because that. Is also liability for the city, for someone else, right? It's not mainly just if the fireman, public safety, it's for the citizenry as well.
Okay.
So the example, I heard one of the trucks was disengaging out of pump, right? So you go to a fire and put in pump, this is what's gonna provide water to protect yourself and to extinguish the fire. Firemen go in, it disengages, right? We go back to the lawful order, like. What right as a supervisor I have, like, no, I'm stopping you right there. We are not responding to a fire on this vehicle because it disengages, right? I can't put my personnel in that situation. But we have no mechanism to be able for the officer to call that shot. What you get is like, no, you're being insubordinate. Like, no, it's not insubordinate. Like, I'm just not going to risk my life with this unit. Why would I do that?
And along those lines, without that mechanism, you're hoping that your 45 captains out there, 50 captains that are on the line, 60 captains are on the line, you're hoping that they have mechanical knowledge enough to determine that.
Okay.
Because they might not be mechanically inclined to that extent to understand what is life threatening and what is not. I hate to say it, but not everybody has the same mechanical skills. So if there was a criteria that said, look, if any of these things happen, this truck is out of service. Like if the brakes are slipping, if it's pulling hard to the right where you can't maintain your lane when braking, if we had a criteria, well, then that would make sense. Going back to the aging fleet, one of the other things we're running into a problem with is where we live. We don't have shops that takes POs in a hurry. We have 2 truck centers that we send our trucks to. And if we're paying with a PO, we'll put it at the end of the line. When 18-wheeler truck drivers walk in with a credit card and go, I need this fixed right now because I'm losing $1,000 a day on my truck not running. And they pay cash, they go to the front of the line. Our trucks go and sit for 3 months at these facilities, waiting for POs, bids, and everything else to come in. Well, that's 3 months that we're using a reserve truck that's over 20 years old. And that goes to the safety concerns that we're talking about. This doesn't happen every once in a while. This is happening every day. This is a major concern. So it's not, I don't want to say I don't want to say it's a lack of wanting to do it. It's that we just don't have the ability to get some of this stuff fixed in the radar.
And
Fair enough.
I know you weren't with the city, but when I bring up a grievance was filed over a buffer, right?
What is that?
The buffalo boards. Right.
Got it. Thought it was something else.
No, the issue was, those few stations with old vinyl floors, we want you to buff them out, and here's this 30-year-old dinosaur to buff it with, right? So under health and safety, like, hey, wait a minute, like, that thing's old, it shakes, and we've had a couple of guys fall and get knocked out with it because of the way it moves. It's just an old tool. So I filed a grievance to one, get what is a lawful order, what workers' comp will carry, what is the criteria, but secondly, I always give the example, like, it's funny that you're saying we should use the safest equipment or the newest, what is the safest and up-to-date equipment. So I'm like, I go to Sam's and I see a person riding almost like a scooter, right? I went to the county building and there's a smaller one where there's an old lady just riding around, shining the floor, like. So with the bag, like, I'm sure there's a safer model to use. Not that old model that's already knocked out to our individuals, right? Because it's just flying all over the place. So when these issues come up, it's, do we really, are we really serious about it? Is there a mechanism that we're going to talk about? Well, and this is the big reason you'll respond within 5 business days is, so there's no holdup of, well, what am I doing? Oh, wait around for another month? Okay, I guess I'll wait around for another month.
Well, I guess just so we're clear, is the 5 days like a hard and fast number, or are you just looking for
We
a
just-
number?
We just put, we talked about it and we're like, well, I guess 5 business, we know the 5 business days should be suffice. It gives administration and whoever's gonna handle it enough time to say, I've seen it, I've already made some calls. Could be 10, it could be, whatever it may be. The idea is to bring up the issue, like, okay, there's an issue, should we resolve it or not?
And I guess now let's go to 11.5.
11.5 is basically on the policy on the drug and alcohol policy. Though the administration has the discretion to place an individual on, they say with or without pay.
Mhm.
Some of them brought up, well, if I'm sent home or I'm on leave without pay.
And I come back
If I
clean.
complied and I clean, why would I not get reimbursed?
Okay.
That's
All right, that makes sense. That makes
basically
sense.
that in a nutshell.
Okay. All right. Any questions on 11 from the team? Ms. Linda? Jesus?
The only issue I have here is this one is governed through the ordinance, that's part of the drug and alcohol policy. And an employee is put up with, if the person is negative, if the person is positive, it's without pay or subject to termination,
Right,
whatever
sure.
the issue findings are. But if you're just taken out, they are paid for that time. Who's not being paid?
Well, we're just saying the chief exercises the right that's given to him here without.
Contractual right. The chief may be
But
placed.
here
on-
it says chief,
Or the last
Deemed-
sentence in black,
as a-
or may
as
be
a-
placed on administrative leave as deemed necessary by the fire chief with or without pay.
But we have an ordinance that says.
Where is this?
Yeah, but this will,
First,
this supersedes one of us.
Black-
If
black-
the fire chief wanted to exercise this, it supersedes one of us. So we could scratch out or without pay.
I mean, you wanna take out
the
the
entire
without pay, or you wanna add the language that says, if he comes back negative, he's entitled to be reimbursed for wages lost.
The policy allows for that, is what I'm saying, is that policy allows it if you had an accident.
But,
and
but
then-
this contract supersedes the name.
If the fire chief holds steady on, no, I sent you without pay.
Has he ever done this?
I wasn't the one who was brought
No,
up.
I've never known it to happen, so I'm asking.
Yeah,
if it's-
I believe in the prior negotiations, that the only reason that, the city believed is that if there were to be held without pay, it'd be something agreed, something like, obviously, like, hey, you're. I mean, of course, you shouldn't be operating anything, but it appears that you're, so we're gonna hold you without pay. And that's what was brought up because our original was just to remove the without pay. Unless, you know,
I mean, I think that's something that we can, I think that's something that we can agree to later on in terms of, because it makes sense what you're saying. But I just want to know how it would be in practice, and I want to know if there's any situations where.
I don't know if there's
this would
ever been,
arise.
but a lot of these times individuals won't bring up. If they're, whether it's.
If they're positive, sir, they're not working anymore with the
Right.
city,
Yeah,
and they're on an
We're
indefinite
just talking
suspension.
about the instances where they are.
If the person is not found to be under the influence of anything, the time is reimbursed. I've never known of someone that is put off and not paid for that time.
Right, no, and I don't think we have either, it's just the language. of-
Okay, you just want to.
And then we can even cite that the ordinance in here, if the ordinance would basically do this, I mean, that's something that could possibly be as part of it, like. With the policy will be followed as per ordinance such
Well,
and such.
the easiest thing would just be remove or without pay, or. Just.
Because
I believe was. a-
11.5 has changed over time that was negotiated. Before, we were sent home with pay,
Right.
and we were in an accident and we were drug tested, we were sent home because we couldn't do anything. And then one of the fire chiefs along the way said, no, I don't want to send him home because someone suggested to him and he bought the idea that he wrecked on purpose on Thursday so he could have the whole weekend off. Because back then the drug test wasn't coming back till like 5 days later, 7 days later. It was taking forever to get back.
No, no, I'm not confused. I just.
I would do it.
That's a hell of a way to get a day off. I'm just saying. Well, you got that hell of a way to get 4 days off. I'm sorry.
So now the fire chief said, so then that policy was changed to say, okay, you stay at the station now. You stay at the station now for the rest of that day. Let's say it happens again on a Thursday or Friday. You stay at the station the whole day. Doing nothing. You can't go for groceries. You can't even drive your own car while you're working. You can't do anything at the station. You just sit there and then you come in, say Saturday or Sunday, and you just sit there for 24 hours and they can't use you anywhere in the city where they need you. You can't be used. But that fire chief wanted the guy to be there. So that's how this has evolved. And now they came back and said, oh, let's put it without pay. We want to have the right to send them home without pay. They just wanted to have the option. Not that we have the knowledge of fire chief exercising that, but in the last
I mean-
contracts that I've been involved, that's how that little section has evolved.
The issue is like, I think the chief, let's say, he suspects that, or one of your supervisors suspects that you are under the influence, right?
Right.
And you go home with pay, right? It comes back positive. We can't get that money back.
Sure.
I think that's the issue. That's why if it's with or without pay, but then you come back clean, that's when your language kicks in and says, we're gonna be reimbursed. I see. I just wanted some clarification.
And it is basically.
And that's the reason why we can't take without.
Right.
I think that's.
Oh,
the
no,
reason
no,
why-
and that's what we're saying, that either way
Okay.
is fine. All it is if that case came about. And the individual was clean and there was no issue, then he should be reimbursed. He or she should be reimbursed. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I got,
I've never been in a situation, but I'm.
I think if I could just
course.
put the language, maybe change it to say, if the employee was put on leave without pay, the employee shall be reimbursed health wages and benefits if the employee was found to be in compliance with the city of Laredo's drug and alcohol policy. Because upon compliance sounds like we gave them time to get into compliance.
Right.
Versus they were in compliance the whole time, we just didn't know, we weren't sure.
Okay.
So that would be my only suggestion.
okay. Well, and we could probably do that in a counter proposal.
Yeah.
For that. Okay. But yeah, any other questions, comments? All right, well, I think we said we were gonna
We'll
stop
call it-
after 11. We'll call it right now. It's 2:53.
I guess just to recap, TA 172237 ground rules.
Yes.
I don't know if we were able to get copies.
Oh, if you want,
We figure we can just make copies of it.
Make copies real quick.
Of the TAs?
The TAs and the ground rules.
Yeah.
We'll just make copies, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just one.
Just one.
That's fine. You mentioned which ones you have proposals for.
Yes,
We've discussed four. We basically took it off the table. We'll bring back.
okay.
And then 6, 8, and 11, we've introduced and answered your question.
Give me a snapshot of that.
No, because. You want to start? And then so the next meeting. Next meeting is March 3rd at 9 AM, right? We're
Yes,
going all day.
March 3rd at 9
And
AM
you'll
all
be
day.
emailing the articles for discussion on Monday. Or Tuesday night.
Hmm. So it was, there's no council meeting before then, right?
No, we
So
don't
the
have
that's
it
okay.
It's till
21st.
March 20th.
Okay, so I think that's gonna be, after March 3rd, I think we're probably gonna have to do the next one after the 20th.
Okay.
Okay, so just so you know, I know it's, yeah, because of this whole DC thing, I just wanna make sure that we have some guidance on certain issues. But there's a lot of issues that we can tackle before then. Okay, so that way we're not just wasting time, we can tackle a lot of issues before we get to the other ones, all right?
So what are you looking at, as far as how many articles per day are you want to attempt to address?
I mean, I think it's just. We get through as.
We'll put out
many
the
as we
list.
can, yeah. We'll put out the list and we get to what we get to, and if there's spill over to the next meeting, we go over that stuff.
So that we can start working, off the ones, the 6 that you mentioned. Which ones are the ones that you think that might be
With 6,
closer to proposals, on the 3rd?
so we're gonna leave 16 off, because. I think we're gonna tackle that one towards the end. 7. 20. So I think, I
We
think,
can kind of look at them,
yeah, just everything but 16, I think we can tackle.
even 32?
32. 32, we can tackle that. I don't think it'll take too long, but we'll figure that out at the. at the
Put that
time.
down and then, so that way we can look over these and, those that we have sent you there.
Yep.
I guess what we're leaving to the end is what, 15, 16,
29,
15, 16, 29,
30.
29 is the health insurance. We need a sub. a subcommittee on that. Kick it out pretty quick. On 29, yeah.
We can
Unless
start
you-
next week if you want to start talking. I've already given the assignment to start. putting the
Chapa
numbers
and
together.
Oscar will be heading up that subcommittee and we'll be working on it. And we've already kind of gone over preliminary how we would address it. And basically it's getting the math.
Maybe Thursday of next week, you maybe check your schedules and see what that might look like.
So 29, we're appointing the subcommittee then.
If you do Thursday of next week, you might have the results for the Friday meeting. On the third. The Thursday will be the second.
Say that again?
You said Thursday of next week, which would be the second, correct?
Yeah, but that's for the
Subcommittee, right?
The
So then
insurance.
they could bring that information to the main meeting on the third, the next day.
Yeah. If we're ready. And so projections, you guys are looking at how many years out?
What I'm gonna share with them is that we're in the 4th year of a 5-year contract with our insurance, and I think we're wanting to see the numbers, so we can share that. What I did say is that we're gonna go for RFPs next year, so I'm not, we can kind of gauge, give or take a little bit.
Okay.
And it'll get us pretty close to where we need to be at.
Other than that? Let's see. You got something, I'm good.
All right. 2:58, we're adjourning this session. All right.